Giddy Up. Giddy up, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 409th episode of the Say Report. You know, like Giddy Up 409. I'm your host, Stephen Decker, and joining me, my host companion, who I know is a fan of the Beach Boys. Big round of applause for Sejohn Sarwick. Sejohn!
Yeah, I don't know if I would call myself like a big fan, but like definitely like has a history, I guess, with it.
I mean,
I don't know. Beach Boys was just one of those bands that like my family had like, the pet sounds, and so we played it constantly, right?
I think I can make a pretty strong argument for the Beach Boys being the greatest American band. I don't want to do that. I'm not prepared to do that. You know what I've been dealing with, Sejohn? Like, as the guy who, like, sets up the titles and goofball stuff when I'm, like, doing the editing and things, is the fact that there are a lot of 400 references. And I, like, wasn't expecting that, but, like, 401, that's like the Rhode Island area code. 409, Giddy Up 409, 404, like, 411, 411, 411. No one has ever said 411 before, I don't think. Right? Like, and we just had to deal with that, the information of our 411 report. And it's just been a lot. It's been a lot, Sejohn. A lot of 400 references. I think this might be why most shows don't go to 400 episodes.
Because it starts getting to be too easy.
It's too referential. I don't know. Yeah, I also remember that like Resident Evil 4 kind of like broke the seal on being able to release a fourth entry into anything. I mean, I know that's not true because Mega Man 4 and Mega Man X4 had existed beforehand, but it really did feel like this revolutionary moment where they're like, we can do a fourth video game and just call it that video game 4, and people aren't going to get mad at us about that. We don't need subtitles.
I mean, Resident Evil 4 also gave like permission to basically completely break the mold, right?
Right.
Like,
yes, that's true.
That whole thing. Like, there's a lot that game did. Yeah. Are we going to talk about Resident Evil 4?
No, we're not.
I mean, like, I wasn't prepared for that either, but I could definitely talk about Resident Evil 4.
I'm not prepared for that. I watched someone play the remake earlier this week, and I'm just like, man, I don't remember you at all. First of all, I thought it was this year. It was a year ago. It was now 18 months ago. And I'm just like, man, that field game, like, it feels like it was yesterday. But no, it wasn't yesterday. No, I guess I'm fueling up with games and talking about, like, needing a boost because I got the Game Fuel, Sejohn. I got the Mountain Dew Game Fuel. And with your permission, I'd like to do a taste test. I have both of them. So I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't realize they were releasing some new Game Fuel.
Yeah, it's it hasn't had the same sort of media push that you'd expect. And I think there are two reasons for that. One, they're partnered with Xbox this time, like very specifically partnered with Xbox. And then the game that's featured is World of Warcraft. Like, I feel like I'm holding a bottle from the past. But if I look...
Xbox... I'm confused. It's an Xbox branded World of Warcraft. Why is that? Why is it Xbox? Why
because
is it not
they own
PC
Blizzard now, don't
Blizzard?
they? Doesn't Microsoft own Blizzard? Isn't that their whole thing?
Yeah, I guess, and I'm sure that there's a version of WoW available in some form on an Xbox. No,
I think that they're releasing one, and that's like the whole thing.
Okay, that becomes a little bit clearer. Yeah, that.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
that is
Microsoft
wild. Like,
did complete their acquisition in October of 2023. But yeah, so like it's weird, but like the World of Warcraft of it all, I'm like that's what we're tying it to? Okay. I mean, I didn't know World of Warcraft was still relevant. Please put down your slings, your arrows, and your stones. I'm just being honest when I say that.
I mean, have you not been listening to any of the controversy right now with the $90 mount that they released?
No, that also seems like it's from the past.
No, this just happened over the last couple of months. They released a new mount in WoW, and the whole bit is that it basically is its own kind of walking town. It has its own like craft system in it. It has its own access to the like trade houses and stuff. There's all of this stuff that you can do, post office, things like that. Basically, all of the things you used to have to go and find a town to do. If you buy this mount, you now can just do it on the go, on the fly. And to my knowledge, people associated with you in some form can use it as well. I don't know if it's like a permissions thing or if they just have to like be in your guild. I'm not hugely familiar with the ins and outs of WoW nowadays, nor have I ever really been.
Yeah. Like I played.
But,
I remember the day that I was one of our collegiate friends was like, "You should try World of Warcraft," and I spent 7 hours in a computer lab on campus playing World of Warcraft. And then like I went outside and the sun was gone, and I'm like, okay, so never again. I can never do that again.
Yeah, no, yeah, we did. We definitely were in that right phase, like for the LAN party, like get together, WoW, like WoW raids and shit. Like we would have been prime like targets for this I think if we had been more PC oriented players at the time, right? Like I don't think either of us would.
Yeah, no, I was hardcore console guy at the time. Yeah. And I am still kind of like we'll talk about that later on in the episode. But yeah.
No, WoW is still making headlines to this day because for the price of basically a game and a half, you could buy this mount that looked kind of like a mount that already existed but had all these other benefits to it, and people are like all over the place on it because on the one hand, it's not anything that's like required to do anything in the game. Like it doesn't like you don't need it in order to move forward in any way. But also at the same time, like it just is such a ridiculous kind of symbol of what has gone wrong in gaming. Yeah, it's a wild little story. I mean, there's so much to the kind of the atmosphere. I mean, essentially, people are pointing to it being kind of a last gasp at the attempt to really kind of get what they can, milk what they can from the what they call whales of the game, right? Like for anybody that's in that world, you know what that is. Like these are the guys that do come in and spend the hundreds of dollars a month on all sorts of silly shit, and it benefits the game to have people that do that in order to move forward. And even if you are not one of those players, you still kind of reap the rewards of people that do behave that way. WoW has only existed as long as it had because of the people that do that, right?
Yeah.
That every year they pump and dump, thousands of dollars into that shit just because it's something that brings them joy, and there's, again, conversations being, happening right now and should be had about the ethics of all of that. But yeah, WoW is in the middle of the news right now as we speak.
Well, yeah, and also I did a little World of Warcraft 2024 Google, and it turns out it's the 20th anniversary of the release of the World of Warcraft on the 23rd of November. So that's a thing that's happening. And
so the mount is also tied to the anniversary, which is also pissing a bunch of people off. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the 13th, on the actual 20th anniversary of the game, they're going to have Warcraft 30th anniversary direct, which will provide a look into the future of Warcraft, because apparently the original point and click game came out in 94, based solely on this. I have not done that work. And then the massive multiplayer online role-playing game, or the MMORPG, or the Memorpiga, released 20 years ago this month. So
sounds like a creature in the game,
doesn't it? Yeah. So I understand a little bit more why they would tie World of Warcraft to Mtn Dew Game Fuel, and there always was sort of the Xbox connection because the original one dropped for Halo 3, right? I think that's the first.
The original
time we got
Game Fuel did. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. The original Game Fuel was definitely Halo oriented for sure. Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me that Xbox is involved with Mtn Dew. What confused me there was the idea of tying Xbox and WoW together, because unless the future of WoW that they are about to announce is that they are bringing it to consoles, which I think would be a huge move if that is not something already available.
I know, because you and I still don't. I don't know. Maybe you changed since we were not playing on computers in 2024. But if I could play WoW on like my PlayStation or my Xbox, there's a chance I would do that. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I had a group. Yeah, no, I had a group of friends that got real into Elder Scrolls Online when it first popped, right? And like we were really down on it, and I was not as frequent enough of a player, so they ended up ahead of me, so I kind of dropped off. But then I know over the years, as that has grown kind of massive, more and more of them have dropped off because it's intimidating, and if you can't keep up, it's hard to if you can't be one of these people that checks in every day or at least every week, like it's hard to keep up with those massive online games, right? And so I know that there is a group of people out there that want this kind of thing and feel a little alienated by what's available. I think WoW, one of the most kind of famous things about WoW is how kind of like open armed it is. Like the early levels of that game, I think are basically free now, right? Like you can
I
go
think
to
you
level
can get
20.
to level 20 for free, and
Yeah,
that's been
right.
for at
Like,
least 10 years.
but again, all on the PC, so there's still that barrier to entry. So
Right.
if they can if they can get through to a console market and be as welcoming as they appear to be, I think that there's tons of potential for them to get a bunch of people back on board. But we'll see. I don't have a I don't have the love for it, right? Like, obviously, as
Yeah.
we've talked for the last 10 minutes, I think that's obvious. I don't have the like nostalgic need for WoW to be a thing available to me, but yeah, I would definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think I would too. I mean, even that one day where I lost it, I would do it the way that I play some other games that I know I could get, like, here's all of my time, here's my new obsession. I'd limit myself, right? Like, we're going to talk a little bit later about the Steam release of Splintered Fate, and that is a game that I know I could just play for hours, but I limit myself to 2 runs a day. But before we go into that, I have before me the Mountain Dew Game Fuel Citrus Cherry, which is the OG flavor. I don't know if it's going to taste that way. And the new one that has literally lit parts of the internet afire with how good it is. And the way people are tracking it down seems like Mormons tracking down the creamy coconut Dr. Pepper based on your things. And that is the Citrus Blackberry, due with a blast of natural and artificial blackberry raspberry flavor. Which one should I crack into first for this?
Well, do the original.
Okay,
Let's
so
hit the
let's
original.
do the
Sorry.
original. Okay.
Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, we got to start. And you got well, like, and did we talk about Game Fuel in our right? We very specifically didn't because it's not a mainline.
Because it wasn't available
a
at the
mainline
time.
Product, right?
If we could have grabbed Game Fuel in our Do the Do episode, I would have definitely tracked down many bottles to try. This is excellent. This is very, very good. It just tastes like home in a lot of ways. Mountain Dew Game Fuel Citrus Cherry, specifically with a blast of citrus cherry flavor and other natural flavors, has always to me tasted like a handful of gummy bears. That is how I would always describe this flavor. And that handful of gummy bears flavor is still right there, and I'm home again. I'm glad that every time they do Game Fuel, they bring this back now. You know, and I also feel like we might have to do a little bit of research into Game Fuel, because I feel like the Mystic Punch Game Fuel that was like 2 years ago may have also been tied to Warcraft. But again, I just don't care about Warcraft. I'm taking one more sip of the citrus cherry. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, I thought you were going to crack open the other one.
I'm going to, but I was just like, I also need to cleanse my palate with a little bit of water between hand. I'm doing the sommelier style. I said that so wrong.
Yeah, I can hear the spit bucket from here.
All right. Cracking into the citrus blackberry. I'm so excited for this. I'm going to be so disappointed. But Devin Decker's a blackberry boy. I will admit that. Blackberry is one of my favorite flavors. I got at the Newport Creamery a 4-scoop blackberry frap last week. And that was like the best day ever. All right. Let's go citrus blackberry time.
All right. Here we go. Citrus and blackberry. What do we...
Oh, my God. You know that scene in Ratatouille where the guy who's an asshole eats the ratatouille and he goes back to his childhood? That is what has just happened as I sip this citrus blackberry. There's not a lot of citrus there. Oh, no, there it is. It's back end of citrus. But the blackberry is so rich and full and heady. It reminds me of my youths running around in short pants and a short sleeve t-shirt, grabbing blackberries off the vine and just shoving them into my mouth until the mean old farmer would come out and tell me to get off his land. That part never happened. That part is definitely an invention. There were no mean farmers in my life. I don't think.
Okay.
But I understand why the internet's going crazy for it. Because in a lot of ways, it's very similar to Pitch Black, which, like, everybody just loves Pitch Black, but, like, without the grape. So it is just this really rich... I could get lost in this flavor, and I kind of feel like I did. So, big fan of both of these. Recommend them. Sejohn, if you can get your hands on them. I don't know. Does Game Fuel exist in Utah? I know that might seem like the weirdest question, but it's the question I just asked you.
The Mountain Dew stuff is hit or miss out here. Like I think we kind of talked about this in the
Yeah, we definitely did. Yeah,
like,
so.
There's some flavors that are definitely just everywhere, and then there's some that I just never see out here. So I don't know. I don't know what the market is.
I was very surprised
when I was in Ohio.
to find these. Yeah, like
yeah.
So,
when I was in Ohio, we would get stuff all the time as the test market, So like,
yeah.
But
I understand. Game Fuel promotion. I just want to see if they have last year's. Oh, it was Diablo 4 was what it was tied to. It was Citrus Cherry and Mystic Punch, which was really good, but they were then both discontinued every 60 seconds. That was, they gave off an Xbox One every 60 seconds in 2017. So wait, Game Fuel has only really been back in the cultural consciousness since last year. That's kind of crazy. I don't even know. And it is their second World of Warcraft promotion. Looking through this, I'll make sure we're giving everybody everything. 2009, after the introduction of Citrus Cherry Game Fuel with Halo 3, it was 2009 where it was a World of Warcraft promotion. It was Game Fuel, Citrus Cherry, and spin-off flavor, I don't know why you would call it that, Game Fuel Wild Fruit, which was a cobalt blue color.
What a lame name. And this one's just wild fruit. Fruit from the wild.
Fruit from the wild. Oh, man. Sidekick bottle. It's good. I'm really excited that I have both of these. And we kicked off our Giddy Up episode with me drinking a bunch of caffeinated soda, because now we get to go to fun new places. You know what I'd like to do, Sejohn? With your permission, I'd like to get out the new segment. I'd like to get that out of the damn way.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right, so with the announcement of the Game Awards that DLCs, if they are deemed substantial enough, may now be in the running for Game of the Year, I felt that was a sign from Jeff Keighley himself that I had to look into a DLC that came out this week that I had zero interest in. But because I didn't want to give them any of my money, I searched around to see if there was somebody who would sponsor us talking about the River City Girls 2 Lee Brothers DLC. And I searched
the only way that you will do this is if somebody else were to pay you to do it.
Yeah, if somebody will pay me to do it, right? So that they cover the cost of the download and then a little extra to wet my beak with, right? Maybe get myself a Mountain Dew Game Fuel. They're not the sponsors. So I looked all around the world. And the person who agreed to do it, the first person who agreed to do it, I'll admit that. I thought she was just being nice because she's my mom. But no, she agreed to do it because she thought it was a fun thing. So here's a semi-sponsored segment on River City Girls 2. And this is sponsored by Dorothy Decker, an independent affiliate of Cruise Brothers. CruiseBrothers.com for all of your travel needs. Dorothy, available at ddecker@cruisebrothers.com, will be happy to tell you where to go, and she'll help get you there. Dorothy Decker for all your cruise and travel needs. Thanks, Mom, for sponsoring this segment, because I was not buying it. And let me tell you, spent a little bit of time with the DLC. I have not finished the game yet, but it is just more of the same laziness that I have come to expect from River City Girls 2. And I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but here I am you can't see it. I'm acting like you can see me. I appeared on a live stream that we'll talk about a little bit later, and that's different when people can actually, see what you're doing on your computer.
Can you talk to me a little bit about just kind of in retrospect, like now that we've got some time away from it, like how does the rest of the world view River City Girls 2? Like, is it?
Not at all, like, really. Like, here's the crazy thing about this, right? Today, as I was playing the River City Girls DLC, I received a message from a friend highlighting it and being like, this has your name written all over it. And the fact of the matter is, I get that. I understand why people would be like, yeah, you definitely would be the target audience for River City Girls. First of all, like, because River City Girls is the first, very beloved. River City Girls 2, I feel like you only know if you know. I don't mean to be rude, but yeah, it does not seem to be as beloved.
I mean, as anecdotal as we can be here, right? Like this idea that if it was not for you, I don't think anybody would ever talk to me about this game.
Yeah.
So like that's where this game exists for me in the zeitgeist and the understanding. Like there are not other people in my life that bring up River City Girls in general, and especially not River City Girls 2.
Yeah, and I understand that. I'm trying to find what is in the DLC, because when they announced the launch date, they put everything that's in there. And one of the things that they were so proud of was the fact that it was going to have new, like, dialogue trees in it. Because one of my biggest complaints about the game is how lazy the dialogue system is. That literally they just had every character read the same lines, and then it plugs in. And, so it's Billy and Jimmy Lee. So when you now boot up River City Girls 2, there's a DLC button on the bottom, and you click that, and you're given for free, right? They say that it's included as part of the DLC. It's not. This is their marketing for it, is a new manga-style cutscene with them talking about the fact that, like, we haven't fought for a while, and now everybody in River City knows how to fight, and we should get back out there. And it's the Game Grumps, and like that is also, I was never happy about that. I wasn't happy with the changes to the characterizations of Billy and Jimmy Lee. I mean, we talked about the Double Dragons. We did a whole episode that covered the movie, right? Well, that and Street Fighter. But they're reinventing the world, right? They're putting their way forward stamp on the world of River City, and they introduced the Double Dragons as shopkeepers, well, dojo keepers, because of that, because we have access to everything. And they also did one of the best Double Dragon games. I'll give them credit for that. Double Dragon Neon, which kicked off this whole like retro-futuristic 80s trend of gaming, right? Because then they did, Shattered Dragon? Was that the name of it? The Far Cry DLC, Blood Dragon. It was okay. RoboCop voicing the main character, and it was like what the future was like according to the 80s.
Michael Biehn was in
Michael Biehn, yeah. Sorry, is he not RoboCop? Did I fuck that up?
No, Peter Weller is RoboCop.
I'm sorry, I'm a damn fool. I will take full responsibility.
He might also be in it. Like I don't know enough about it to say that.
I don't know anything about the game. I never played it, but I know. Yeah, but it's Michael Biehn. I got those two confused, and that's on me. I'll take that responsibility. So the manga is free, even though they say it's part of downloading it. No, the manga is something that you get because they want to sell you the game. It is not something you added when you get the DLC. All of the story, like the storyline, it starts like the River City Girls 2 starts with Kyoko and Misako being late to school because they stopped for donuts. That's the exact same thing that they got Billy and Jimmy talking about. Like, there's no reason for them to go to high school. And it's like really just that same laziness is there, even though this whole update that they were going to do related to this Double Dragon stuff, they're like, don't worry, we're going to fix your complaints about the dialogue trees. So far, I have not seen that. In fact, it feels worse because this is what you think a fix is.
Ouch.
I'm being honest. Fighting as them does feel good, right? The one thing that is I cannot fault in River City Girls 2 is the fighting. I will fault how boring the narrative is, how like overstuffed it is to make it last longer than it has to. Like the mission moments are some of the worst things in terms of like pacing a video game I've ever experienced. The boss fights, we even just redid like the first boss fight against Ken, Sabu's son, and against Marion. We decided this one, Dale joined me on this, and we were like, we're going to go fight through Marion as the Double Dragons, because one would then imagine that would have something, right? She's their girlfriend. She's the one they save in the first game. So you'd expect that once you beat her, maybe there's going to be some new dialogue. But no, they didn't bring in the voice actor for Marion. So it's just Dan and Aaron reacting to what she said. And it's like, Marion, how are you doing? And then she's like, I'm Marion. Marion, whatever her last name is, I don't remember. I just played it. And they're like, yeah, we know that. We dated briefly. And it's just, this doesn't seem right. And then, like, they are establishing the Double Dragons very, very clearly that Billy is who Marion chose. So then the, like, cheeky sort of threesome bit in the manga storytelling that Marion does after you beat her in a fight, where she's like, we were close. How close? All three of us were very close. And then, like, the two high school girls were like, that's hot. Like, way to own it, girl. But, like, no, that clearly wasn't happening because you now have them saying, like, you were dating her. She was your girlfriend. So, all it did was weaken an already, like, not strong package. And then the last thing that I want to talk about related to it, right? Because I'm not giving this more time than it is. I played it. It did not revolutionize the game. The game has not been fixed from some of the problems that it has. But, like, did we ever give Gerard the Completionist and his charity fraud festivities time on the show, Sejohn? Or, like,
no,
we left that to everyone else, right? Like,
look, I'm willing to talk about it. You had some personal feelings that you felt you didn't know if you wanted to be recorded, so we could definitely talk about it.
Well, the fact of the matter is that Gerard, aka the Completionist, found that he was running a charity and that it was all a scam. Like, people put the work into to establish this. It's just a thing that existed. But then in the wake of that happening, he had shown up in a bunch of independent games and they removed those cameos, right? Specifically, the big one is like Sea of Stars. He was sort of like a quest keeper, and they pulled him right out of there. And, you know, that's a thing that happened. River City Girls 2 has a huge mural of the Completionist once you get to the Flatiron district of River City. And, you know, once a game was released, I'm not expecting you to go back and change it. But if you're going to put in the time to add, as they say, like new dialogue options and color palette options and all this other stuff, it seems a little weird that, like, you would just keep that in there. Right? Like, you're not done with the game at that point. If you were completed with the game, we're no longer doing work in it, to get together a team to remove him. Like, Sea of Stars had released 3 months before everything came out about what he was doing. So, like, it made sense that they could update their game that was, like, still relatively new. Now, River City
Girls...
Girls...
probably still doing patchwork and stuff anyway, so...
Exactly. River City Girls, you know, released in Japan December 1st, 2022, and then in America, December 15th, 2022, right? There are still 2 builds of the game because the Asian market is very upset that they don't have access to the Double Dragon DLC yet. That is the most that I can find about it, is why isn't this DLC featuring the Double Dragons, who are characters that they care about more over there, for whatever reason, various reasons, right? Why can't we play as these characters over here? Yet. Why is it in America but not here? So that's that whole thing. That's the most chatter. But even then, chatter on the internet wise, like, yeah, that's probably smaller than, like, the fan base for the Say Report. I'm just going to be like, compare that. Like, I don't see a lot of people talking about these games. Can you bring up Steam? I don't have Steam on the computer we record on. But, like, can you, like, see, like, how many people ranked it? Because it'll show you that, right?
What ranked?
Just the River City Girls 2, specifically that game, not the DLC. But, yeah, so, like, that, yeah. And then the last thing that they did add, and this was fun, it was fun, but then it's just like, I'm still not a fan of the game, Grumps. But I can admit that it was fun. If you go into a dojo with both of the Lee brothers, now there are 2 types of dojos, a training dojo, not like the dojo shop. There is a new song that has been recorded that is them in character rapping about being the Double Dragons. And it is a lot of fun if you're a fan of Double Dragons going all the way back to the first game. References to game.
What is the...
like reviews, like how many ranked, like that. Usually you can see out of like, it's like a 4.5 out of however many reviews.
12 reviews.
Are you kidding? This is the original game.
Overall reviews is 1,200 reviews. Sorry.
Okay.
Recent reviews is 12 reviews.
Okay.
So 1,200.
1,200. 1,200. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at people are not happy with it, but let's look at Black Ops 6.
I mean, that.
I'm just curious so we can compare. Review
Black
wise.
Ops 6.
Yeah.
Now this is just on Steam.
Yes, this is just.
I want to view the page. I am old enough to.
You're
look
old
at
enough to
Call
view
of
the
Duty
page.
games.
You can set that in settings so that doesn't come up anymore.
6,500. So about 6 times as many.
Six times as many.
5 times as many.
And that's
5 times as many people have reviewed it.
And that's been out for 2 weeks as opposed to the 2 years of River City Girls 2. So yeah, like that. I mean, I'm even a little bit guilty of forgetting about Way Forward games because I was sitting there thinking about old PlayStation 2 games because someone just restored one of the limited edition Toys R Us PlayStation 2s. I watched a video of someone restoring one of them to its glory. And I'm like, man, I wish there was a new Evil Dead game. I feel like the last one I played was on PlayStation 2. Completely forgetting that Way Forward and Retro Realms just did an Evil Dead game that I played and talked about on this show a month ago.
Yeah, there's also been a couple of different Evil Dead games since then, too.
Right? Well, Dead by Daylight one and then the asynchronous multiplayer, right?
There was the asynchronous one, but then there was also the Evil Dead one from a few years ago.
What Evil Dead one from a few years ago? I feel like a fool at this point. Because the one I can think of is the one with Sam Raimi's brother, Ted Raimi, as the little homunculus that helped Ash.
And that was PlayStation 2?
That was a PlayStation 2 game. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, was it PlayStation 2 or was it PlayStation 4, but they were still making PlayStation 2 versions of games?
No. It was a PlayStation 2, maybe Xbox game. Evil Dead video games. Let's look at the franchise of video games. So yeah, that one was Evil Dead Regeneration. It was available on PlayStation 2 and Windows. So yeah, and that released in 2005. So it was, and then I definitely know there was a Army of Darkness defense game for iOS and Android in 2011. But yeah, video game wise, also the Evil Dead franchise video games do not include any of the Ash vs. Evil Dead games, which is, I guess, technically what you would consider that asynchronous game and the Retro Realms game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was thinking of Evil Dead Regeneration and the fun I had playing that game. Even Fistful of Boomstick, which came out in 2003, that one was really good. Where the talk show lady ended up being the bad guy. Spoilers.
Yeah.
For a 20.
No, that's the one that I thought. That one I knew was PlayStation 2. It's why I thought Regeneration was a couple of generations later. It was because I thought Boomstick was PlayStation 2, and then but I didn't realize that. Man, Regeneration was as old as it was. Did they do a re-release somewhere? Maybe is that why I played it on 4? Or I wonder if it's in the PlayStation streaming.
It's probably on the streaming of it all because it doesn't seem to be. It only looks like it was released. Oh, PlayStation 2 and Xbox. It came out on September 13th, 2005, and then the Windows version came out 7 days later, September 20th. But yeah, that's
right.
That's the type of game I want, where it's semi-collectathon with Ash, different weapons and everything. I want to feel like Ash again, and I haven't
almost
gotten.
Almost like medieval. Honestly, it has a lot of the same feelings as that. The Hellboy games have kind of been in that world too.
Oh, I haven't played any of the Hellboy games. I know that they're releasing though, right? You had highlighted one of them and told me to check it out, but I never did.
Well, I don't know how much Web of Weird is kind of like that, but the big thing about Web of Weird that I probably was highlighting was that it was one of the final roles of Lance Reddick.
Right. Yeah.
Lance
so
Reddick,
Web of Weird,
yeah.
that is his name, yeah. Yeah, so I should look into that after No New Games November is done. But yeah, so the DLC, again, this is sponsored content about River City Girls. The best part is the song, and I bet you can find that on YouTube. Playing as the Lee brothers, there doesn't feel like anything hyper unique about playing as them. I mean, the big difference is that they started at level 1, where all my other River City Girls characters are top level, which I think is 30 is the cap out in that game. So like they also felt slow and not fun to play with because I don't have access to all of the combos I do with other characters.
Man, they didn't even dump like some like XP on you to at least get them to like 10 or something like that. Like,
no, like you had. I mean, they level up quickly. I will admit that. By the time we stopped, we were both at level 11. By the time we beat Marion. But even then, the level up is so weird compared to River City Girls the first, because you only get stuff through the first 7 levels, and then everything is stuff that you have to pay for in the dojos. So even if they had like accelerated your level, you wouldn't be able to afford some of the higher level, more fun things yet.
Weird.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so that's it.
I don't know if we were expecting to be surprised by any of this.
No, you know what? It's not that I was surprised, and it's like one of the reasons why I didn't want to pay for it. And again, thank you to Dorothy Decker of Cruise Brothers, ddecker@cruisebrothers.com. She'll tell you where to go and how to get there. Thanks, Mom, for sponsoring this. But again, if you're out there and you're a listener and you want to sponsor any of our things, contact us, thesayreport@gmail.com. We'll figure something out if you want to be one of our sponsored segments on the Say Report. 409 episodes. That seems to be a good time to start maybe offering sponsored content.
Yeah, I don't want to give like carte blanche and say that if you send us money or like a Steam version of a game, we will definitely play it. But you know, it's a good way to incentivize us to try.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We do still reserve the right. We haven't been independent through 409 episodes, and then we're just going to sell our souls. We reserve the right to say thank you for this, but no thank you. We don't want to, endorse your stuff, even for the money that you're giving us, right? Like, that was weird. Like, when the local radio station was running Rumble ads, and I'm just like, maybe I don't listen to this local radio station anymore. Maybe that's going to be how my life goes. But yeah, so there's The Door Closed and River City Girls 2 DLC. Again, thank you, Mom, for sponsoring it. I appreciate that. Other things to talk about, though. Do we want to stay in the realm of games, or do we want to like maybe game sandwich this, or sandwich on game this?
I want to hear what your sandwich is.
Well, the sandwich would be game. So like the meat of the sandwich. I kind of want to talk about Red 1. And I know that it just came out on Friday, but I was lucky enough to see it last Sunday after we recorded. It was a terrible experience. We ended up getting our money back from the experience because there were 3 rowdy, like 13-year-olds in the theater, and they were sitting in the wrong seats, and then an usher told them just sit in those empty seats. And the Deckers, we buy extra seats so that we have little buffers from people, right? We used to live with someone who was immune compromised. So we do want to make sure that, like, we can inoculate ourselves from being exposed, but still live our lives. And 2 of the seats that an usher told them to sit in were seats that we had paid for. And that sucks. That's real
weird.
Yes.
Why were they not just told to sit in the seats they paid for?
Well, they didn't have their tickets because our mom and our dad are in another movie. Okay. So they have our tickets.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is another issue that you go see the movie with your damn kids, right? Like, you don't drop your kids off to be babysat by the movie.
I would venture to guess they were lying, Devin.
They weren't lying.
I don't think Mom and Dad were in the theater anywhere.
Okay, well, if that's the case, but when my mother brought it up that because I've plexed, you've plexed, we've all done it, right? I hope you've all done it. She brought it up to an usher. She's like, you got those 3 kids. I think they're plexing. And the usher goes, oh, no. They came in with their parents. Their parents are in theater 5 with a movie, and then their movie is out. So they're just hanging out till their parents are done. Like, that's an usher who told us that, which is why we called the manager to be like, hey, what the fuck is going on at your theater? Like, just asking. Like, you're letting kids in without parental guidance. You have managers who are telling them to sit in seats rather than going to find their actual seats. Like, what's going on? And that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Red One was also this, like, generally I go to very early morning movies, which do not have the audiences. Red One's special screening being a 4 p.m. in the afternoon movie, it was like the high time to go to the movie theater, right? You're still getting matinee prices because matinee pricing goes on till 6 o'clock. So it was a fairly busy theater. And that reminder that people have forgotten how to go to the movies. Like, standing up during the movie. Like, please just sit down. Why are you standing up? If you're going to the bathroom, then just go to the bathroom. But don't just stand up in front of me. What are you doing? Like, talking about...
Yeah.
Like, talking like, oh, I'm not watching the movie anymore. I'm watching to get more popcorn so I can talk as loud as I want. Like, those things.
Right.
And then those 3 kids, right? Like, I was a kid who went to the movies. I was there for the movie. I wasn't there to fuck around. And I understand that, like, and I understand that also, like, teenagers, couples, they go to the movies to have fun. I don't mind that. Jurassic Park? No, it wasn't Jurassic Park. It was Now You See Me 2. Still should have called that movie Now You Don't. It's the biggest problem that I have with the cinema in the last 10 years at least. There was, like, an older couple making out and just having a good time. And after the movie, they apologized. And it's like, no, it really wasn't a bother. Like, we just knew that it was happening. Thank you for the apology, though. Like, now you've made us part of it. Like, it's one thing if you're, like, selfishly making out in the row ahead of us. It's another when you're like, we know that we were selfishly making out and possibly ruined the movie. Apologies. But other than that, other than all of the issues, Red One, in general, was a pretty fun fucking movie. I had a good time at the cinema with Red One, which is why Box Office Mojo reporting that on its opening day, it made $10.9 million domestically, and worldwide it's currently sitting right around $40 million. Now, not everything has reported. A lot of that is based on like averages and projections based on what numbers they actually have. But Sejohn, do you know how big the budget was for Red One? That's the first question I have to ask.
$250 million, right?
$250 million.
Yeah. I mean, that's the pretty normal price for a CGI heavy action family adventure nowadays. Like 200 to 250 million is what I expect whenever I see one of these movies that, like, you know, it looks like it's a Marvel movie light.
Right. And that is a really good way to describe Red One. It's fun though. Like, I didn't have the fatigue that I've had with like some superhero movies as of late. And they built their own world. Like, it was very, aside from the fact that Christmas is what a lot of it was based on, they did a lot of world building. It kind of felt like Men in Black would be something I would compare it to before I compare it to anything else. Where, like, there is an organization that protects mythical creatures and all this other stuff that's going on. But the really crazy thing, right, is that it was a $250 million budget, but it was originally going to be a Prime Video exclusive original film that then got swapped to a theatrical release. So the fact that it is not generating the profit they were expecting, they're not happy about that. And I'm not happy either because it was a fun movie. And it's difficult for me to find a fun holiday film. A lot of the times I get a little cynical. They feel a little cash grabby.
Well, and that's another side to all of this. I was waiting to watch this movie at Christmas. What the fuck is this movie doing out on November 17th? Like what is this movie? What business does this movie have that is so Christmas oriented, at least in its marketing, and from what you've said, sounds like in the story, like why is it out 6 weeks before actual Christmas?
Well, I mean, that's the thing that we've been trying to figure out for, like, why does the Christmas movie season starts in November so that there's a chance it will be available for home consumption, right? It's the same reason why horror movies come out in July, right? So that when October comes along, you can go buy that movie, rent that movie.
Yeah, but I would expect to see it, and this is not so much the case the last 5 years. We have actually talked about how this window has shifted. But like in that case, I would expect the Christmas movie to come out in weirdly like September, end of September, right? Because that gives it that 90-day possibility to then have a DVD video release for Christmas week or something like that, right? Or you see it in like February or May, so that they can then make sure that the DVD is buyable by Black Friday, right? Like I would expect to see it earlier. Putting it in November means that it's not going to actually be available at home usually until like January sometime, right? Like there's there's like a weird kind of math that they would need to do to figure that out that I don't even think this fits into. Because 6 weeks, maybe if they want to bring it to a streaming service, but in that case, they can't have expected it to be doing that well in theaters. Like the pipeline to bring it direct to streaming in less than 2 months usually indicates that it's because the movie wasn't doing well enough for them to hold back for any reason. It's it the math on this one's been really weird.
You
Like,
know what's strange though? This is when the Christmas movie season starts. Going back to 2000 and Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey, that was released November 17th, 2000, which really puts it, what business do you have being a Christmas movie on November 17th, into the coolest perspective. Thank you, Sejohn, for that. I don't think you planned it. It's just like the beautiful serendipity of how this industry works. And then the other one
I
that
don't remember watching that movie before Christmas of that year, though.
I mean, the other thing about it being 2000 is you have to consider the fact that they're releasing it in November and it's going to be in theaters without any problem through Christmas. It's none of this, you have 2 weeks to make as much fucking money as you can and then get out. November 7th for Elf, just because it said if you like Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, you might like Elf. So, like, that was even 10 days earlier, three years later. But the one that, like, feels like the last time that we had, like, a Christmas release prior to all of the pandemic nonsense. And that's trivializing. The pandemic was not nonsense, but, like, what we have seen entertainment try to do as a response to it is the nonsense that I'm talking about, is the Illumination Grinch with Benedict Cumberbatch, and that was November 9th, 2018. So this isn't new, which I don't think you were even saying it was new, but I do want to make sure that the audience is aware that it's not new for a Christmas movie to come out in November, but what's new is that now movies do not stay in theaters multiple months.
Yeah, and there's not the so this is what I was getting at with the math, right? Is like there's not this kind of weird push of like we need to figure out when this is actually going to be able to get into people's hands. It was a pretty standard thing in the past that it was in that like 90-day range, 60 to 90 days, but mostly closer to that 90 days that it would be available for home release. Because by that point, you have contracts where you have different channels that are picking it up. Some of them are going to get it before the release so that they can say it's exclusive to them, but most of them are going to get it after the release. Like there was all of this stuff that it was the standard life cycle of a movie that you could kind of like watch and happen, and having to figure out, okay, if we release now, first of all, award season, right? One of the big things about talking about like for the Grinch That Stole Christmas, the Ron Howard Jim Carrey version, right?
Yep.
There's no way there wasn't somebody behind the scenes going, if we get this out soon enough, we can kind of get the buzz going and see what we can do with some Oscar season with this. This is one of those movies that has that potential to be picking up some even some of the random side ones. But with Jim Carrey as your lead and Ron Howard as your director, we might even be looking at, right? So like there's that element to it, the awards show season element to it. How fast can we get it to people, or how soon can it be on TV at least? Because one of the things is like, with the November release of this, like I could see potentially there being a channel back in 2000 that would be able to then pick up like, hey, it's not available for home buy yet, but for Christmas you can watch it at home if you watch it on Disney. Like that kind of thing could happen. Whereas like now, because nobody has TV anymore, pushing it to streaming is not going to encourage people to watch it now. It's going to tell people, hey, this didn't do good enough in theaters. But that's exactly what they would want to do, right? Hey, you had the opportunity to see it in theaters, but now pay for your Amazon Prime subscription to watch it at home. it just the timing feels so fucked now because of the ways that things have changed in the last 5-6 years alone. Like since COVID, the way that timing has changed on movie release schedules and like the life cycle of a film. I don't know why they put this movie out so soon.
Yeah, I mean, our very special episode for December, right? So it's still a week, some time off, is going to be Surviving Christmas. That came out October 22nd, 2004, and it was crazy to people that 9 weeks later it was available on DVD. Like, it's like unprecedented that this Christmas movie is available in time for the holidays. So, yeah, you bring up a really good point about this thing. And the other thing with the whole Amazon Prime of it all is it's also, they've done that stupid thing where now you have to pay if you don't want commercials. So, like, even if you're just an Amazon Prime subscriber, right, and that's how you're going to get access to it, they're going to more than likely get advertising money off of Red One from those people who are buying Amazon Prime to have it to watch at Christmas. Yeah. It is weirdly the worst of both worlds in streaming and broadcast.
Yeah, sure. Or you're going to opt to pay the rental price or the purchase price instead of just getting Prime, which for them in the moment is $10-15 more depending on what you opt to do. Yeah. So like
But then also let's look at something. The Saturday Night Live movie, which I think is just called Saturday Night, that released October 11th, and it was on sale November 12th on Amazon Prime. So, like, we're looking at more of a 60-day release window for theatrical films at this point.
That's 30-day.
That is 30. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a 30-day release. 60 just seems so natural to me, Sejohn. That's a 30-day window.
No. Yeah, I mean, but that's where we are now, right? Is this idea that, like, half the time a movie I expect to see in theaters doesn't even make it to a theater near me, and instead I have to wait until it's just on Apple TV a couple of weeks later or something. Like there's all of these different methods now, right? Nobody is doing the same thing that any other company is. Half the time they're not doing the same thing they did with their own releases. Like, it's so hard to track when a movie is going to be available here, there, or not, because not only are people doing it differently depending on what streaming service you're talking about, even the independent streaming services have their own kind of weird wars with themselves about, like, well, maybe this will be available on Peacock, or maybe this will be available on Universal. Like, there's all sorts of weird choices about, like, where you're going to find stuff. Maybe it'll be on TV, maybe it won't. It's just, it's crazy that they wanted to put a movie out like this and expect it to do well when the only real hook to the entire thing, the only solid handhold anybody has to this movie right now is that it is a Christmas movie. Like, beyond that, there's nothing really driving anybody to talk about this film or go to this film right now. Like The Rock is in a weird place, like, celebrity-wise. Chris Evans is doing that really, like, interesting thing where he's really not putting himself at the forefront of a lot of stuff right now. Like, you don't hear a lot about him going on, like talk shows. I'm sure he's doing it, but he's making it a point to not make a splash with a lot of these things. And I think it's actually working really well for him because he keeps walking away from these kind of, like, mediocre, like, projects, not mediocre in the art, but mediocre in the success, and he keeps coming out smelling like roses, because I think of the other one that he did with the Russos, The Gray Man, a few years ago, right? Where all I ever heard about that was, it was a bit of a boring movie, but Chris Evans was awesome in it. It's like, okay. Yeah, and it's kind of all I've heard about Red One so far is Red One being like, Red One people online being like, I went to go see this and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I can tell you that I like Chris Evans in it. It's like, okay.
I really like the world. The world that they were able to build in 2 hours and 3 minutes blew me away. But I love Christmas, like that type of stuff, like the real lore of Christmas and collecting it together. And they did a lot of real deep cuts with that. But I will say, like, remember when Robert Downey Jr. was in the Dr. Dolittle movie as his follow-up to everything Marvel? And people were like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? I have not heard that about any of Chris Evans' roles. And even this movie that seems to not be doing as well as I would hope it would be doing, I don't think anybody can look at Chris Evans and go, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? right?
No. The big thing right now is everybody's pulling punches at The Rock again, and then the other thing is what is J.K. Simmons doing in this movie? As if J.K. Simmons has not also been in 1,000 projects that nobody talks about before.
J.K. Simmons is in everything. That's just how he works. I mean, yeah, and Chris Evans also. It's not like he was also with freaking Knives Out after Captain America became old and handed over the mantle to Sam, which, how crazy is it? I mean, like a blip has gone by since that happened before we're going to see an actual factual Sam Wilson Captain America film.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, a lot of people are not super jazzed up about that particular movie. That's not coming out till February, but I'm excited to see it. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I'm excited to see it too. I don't understand how so many people can already hate it as a movie that hasn't even been in front of their eyeballs yet. But yeah,
I think part of that comes from the fact that it definitely did have test screenings that people were not fans of. So like that has leaked out into the mindscape of our world. Here's the crazy.
So like 60 people got to see it, so now we all have an opinion on it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't have an opinion, you don't have an opinion, but there are people on the internet who are like, these 60 people didn't like it, so that's my opinion. The other crazy thing is that Red One releasing a week before Wicked seems like just, we wanted this to fail. It almost feels like producers style, if this flops the way it flops, then we'll get, to keep the money, right? Hollywood accounting at its finest. Because Red One is definitely in laser projection, at least the showcase cinemas around me, right? But
it's
I know
not going to be once Wicked comes
right,
out,
but the Wicked is definitely taking it over. So usually the laser projection stuff gets about 2 weeks in there. They try to level it out that way. So for them being like, yeah, we'll have 1 week of like the laser projection, and then you could see it in like a theater about the size of your living room. I don't know. The whole thing is like, you're competing against Wicked. It just doesn't make any sense. And the last thing I'll say about Red One is the fact that a lot of these movies that come out like before Christmas, sometimes the people are smart about that, and they kind of write the story to reflect the fact that you watching this in the movie theater, it's still 4 weeks to Christmas for you, right? Love Actually is my big example of that. But I can think of other ones that, we wrote this movie to reflect. The Grinch. Like, The Grinch has time to plan to be Santa in the Illumination one, because they wanted to reflect that fact that the Grinch is pissed off that it's 6 weeks to Christmas, and that's what inspires him to do it. Not like Christmas Eve. Red One, Santa Claus is abducted on Christmas Eve. So that there's a ticking clock, and it also really kind of ruins it, because I'm like, isn't it technically already Christmas in Australia right now? Like, what's happening? Didn't they already fuck up Christmas for us? Like, what's... And it does that thing that I do hate where, like, we're going to have to cancel Christmas because Santa's not there. Meanwhile, Jesus, like Ross Perot in that Treehouse of Horror where he takes off his hat and punches it. Like, well, you're not canceling my birthday because that guy's not coming. It's still about Jesus, right? No, Christmas is canceled this year. Like the Year Without a Santa Claus. I love the Year Without a Santa Claus. We have to find the John Goodman version, Sejohn, because I want to watch it for the show. I love the John Goodman Year Without a Santa. Delta Burke as Mrs. Claus. I mean, it's like everything I love in a movie. It's like, but Year Without a Santa Claus is like, yep, Christmas is canceled. Santa's not doing it. Like, I'm not a big fan of that. And I'm not even like a hyper-religious person. It's just like, I don't think Santa should be the end-all, be-all of Christmas.
I mean, I think the idea is that he represents Christmas spirit. So when Santa gets kidnapped, like, Christmas in general just gets, like, ruined. The tying of, like, Santa to the whole, like, Christmas season is definitely a move by a certain type of person in this world. And, like, I agree with you that it shouldn't be that way for a bunch of reasons. Not, even divorced from the religiosity of it all, the idea being that, hey, we can still give each other gifts just because this guy's not going to come give us his gift doesn't mean we can't give each other the gifts we were going to give each other. That's the thing that always gets me in these movies, is didn't anybody buy gifts for each other in this story, in this scenario? I guess
mean,
not, huh?
It's such a weird thing. So in a world where Santa exists, right? In any movie, Santa exists. So if we knew, right, if we had quantifiable evidence that Santa
Man, it
Claus
was really weird
exists
that
in
Santa's
our world,
seen in Closer, but like you said, if it's a movie, Santa exists.
honestly, Coal Miner's Daughter, as long as that's playing, I'm fine. I can believe anything. But is that the song from Closer? God, I fucking hate Closer. That is a movie I do not love. You want to do a Closer episode? Dale can be in the chair for that one. She wrote so many papers about that movie and during getting her film degree. Back to the Santa. If we had quantifiable evidence that Santa existed in our world, right? And I still believe, I want to believe in Santa Claus, right? Even if he's not one guy who delivers toys to the entire world in one night, I want to believe that there is some personification of just like happiness and being kind to people, right? And I mean, St. Nicholas of Elmira did exist, right? So it's not one of those situations where like, I mean, like, I believe that he existed. I don't just believe that he may be the guy who can deliver gifts in 24 hours, which it's more than that because of time zones, but I'm not going to be that asshole right now. But if we had quantifiable evidence that Santa Claus was coming every year and giving everybody a gift, would we as human beings still buy gifts for each other? Or would we all just be expecting our gift from Santa?
No, of course we would buy gifts for each other. That's stupid.
I mean,
because
you
who out
say
there
that,
only
but you...
gets one gift on Christmas, or at least once? Like, I understand in some situations people are in bad straits, and that's just what they're doing. That's the compromise. Sometimes even less than that. I understand that, right? But the average common scenario is that child come down to Christmas tree, there be many presents for child, not just one. So even even in a world in which Santa existed, he brings that one gift to every kid. There's still room for other gifts to be given, and people still do that. People still give each other gifts despite now. Like, if I find out that my friend got a gift from his mom and dad, I don't turn around and say, well, then I'm not giving you a gift. You already got one. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. That's not right. And honestly, I do like, so the fact that Red One has this whole thing, we might have to cancel Santa Claus. I'll alert the world leaders. Like, the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? Because the movie even starts with spoilers for the first 5 minutes of Red One here. I just want to make sure you know it. The young Chris Evans character betting all of his like cousins and things at a Christmas party that Santa Claus doesn't exist, and then him opening up like the present closet that has a bunch of the presents ready to go, which I feel like that's a thing. If you're in a household where your parents do buy like gifts for you, they're not buying them all on Christmas Eve. There's a place in your house where those presents are hidden. And like his whole character is that he's the best tracker in the world, so that he tracked down where the gifts were hidden and this whole thing. And then there's this beautiful scene with Mark Evans Jacobs, right? That's his name, right? Or Holt's husband. Is that his name? Mark Evan Jacobs?
I don't know, man. What
I'll
are you talking about? I haven't seen the movie, so I couldn't tell you.
No, but that's the character. No, I'm telling you, if you know who the actor is, that helps. Mark Jacob Evans. I gotta find his name now. I'm so sorry to everybody that you're stuck in this moment where I cannot remember an actor's name. Mark Evan Jackson. So I was kind of close. Mark Evan Jackson, as his uncle goes, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm telling them that there's no Santa Claus. It's time for them to grow up." And he goes, these are the gifts from us to you. Santa brings his gifts on Christmas Eve. So they even establish in the world of Red One that, like, people still buy gifts for each other. So it's not that Christmas is canceled. Like, alert the world leaders that Santa Claus is not making his run this year. Right? Parents can still give gifts to their kids. Kids can still give gifts to their parents, right? Macaroni necklaces. Yeah. Spouses can still buy gifts for each other. Like, it's weird. Like, now I'm looking at poking holes in Red One. Thanks. No, I'm not mad at you at all. I've always had a problem with
those. But that's not just a Red One issue. That's a Christmas movie pointed issue. Out.
Yeah,
right. Is that it's that idea that there's always this if Santa is somehow in trouble or unable to do what he does, that somehow all of Christmas ends is goofy for a few reasons, but not least of which this idea that like people could still put their own decorations up. But that's where I come back to what I originally said, where I think the idea is that you're supposed to be viewing Santa not as like a character, but as a representation of a larger concept. So it's not just like Santa has been kidnapped. Like the spirit of Christmas, the literal thing that lives within you that makes you want to give gifts, to put up Christmas trees, to sleep in on Christmas Day, so that and not go to work, and like all of the things that make you feel warm and fuzzy on a holiday, that has been taken from you as well. And I think that tying those to Santa and all of that is what the move is. Take that for what you will. But I mean, like, we're getting to that point where I always say about holiday movies in general, and especially Christmas movies, where you kind of forgive that kind of thought process, that logic leap, that understanding, because it's a holiday movie. There's a certain level of forgiveness that these movies get, and I think that's the other side of all of this that's really going on with the Red One stuff that has really been kind of rubbing me the wrong way, is the ways people are like crapping on this stuff. I don't know, like, I'm not saying that a movie can't be good or shouldn't be well made just because it's a holiday movie, but the surprise with which people are like, I went to this movie about a group of basically men in blacks that have to save Santa for being kidnapped. Like, yeah, and it's a Christmas focused film. Yeah, sounds really silly to me. I don't know where we thought it was going to be like the savior of cinema. This attitude that we apply to all movies now. Every single movie that comes out has to somehow be the best written, the best acted, the best directed, the best produced film of all fucking time, or it's utter garbage. And it's just like, okay.
And the other weird thing about that is how closely tied a film being utter garbage is to how much money that it makes. Mm-hmm. Right? Sure, maybe it only made like $40 million in this opening weekend. But if everybody who contributed to that $40 million really thought it was a well-made film, then it doesn't matter that it only made that, right? Or it shouldn't matter that it only made that much money. Right?
I will say that as I now have Red One in front of me, because I was trying to look up Mark Evan Jackson.
Yeah.
You got me doing it too.
Sorry, Mark Evan.
But I will say that the other thing to point out is that I am talking anecdotally about all the ways that people are talking about this movie, and we are talking about the fact that it didn't make money. On IMDb, with a $21,000 rating, like numbers of ratings, it's sitting at a 7 out of 10. So like, it's also not doing hugely terrible. Its popularity, like, how IMDb does like the stock market style like ratings, they can show you how well a movie has kind of done lately versus where it was, or how it's kind of the opinion on it has gotten worse. To me, it's really interesting, specifically before and after a movie comes out, because we live in this world now where people get so much information about a movie, they have an opinion about it before they even see it, right? And watching the ways in which like the success of that film, whatever that is based on for IMDb, goes up or down after the movie actually comes out, is interesting. And this movie is in the green currently. It has only gone up in popularity since its release. So like, it is more popular than it was expected to be, and has a pretty solid rating of, I think it's technically like a 6.95 out of 10, but like a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. These are not bad metrics for a film, right? Especially for a movie that has only been out for technically just this weekend, right? Because you saw it on a preview.
I saw it on
Sunday,
a preview on Sunday. Yeah,
so like, yeah, I am expecting that this movie is going to have a little bit of a resurgence probably around Christmas time. The theaters that are still playing it, or if Amazon makes it available in some fashion, I think we're going to hear a little bit more about Red One actual Christmas.
Yeah.
But I never expected this movie to be any type of like groundbreaking cinema experience. So I'm excited to hear that you at least had fun at it.
It was a wonderful time. I inspired fun conversation. All of my complaints about the movie, aside from the complaint about Christmas movies, were the fact that like, just because there's no Santa doesn't mean there's no holiday. But I like your explanation of that. I'm gonna ruminate on that. Like, it was more the fact that like, I kind of just wish I watched it at home so I didn't have to deal with people going to the bathroom or loudly talking about, I'm getting more popcorn. We all didn't need to know that. But also, looking at that popularity thing, I never expected Venom: The Last Dance. It was number 1 yesterday. It just went down to number 2 today based on the popularity thing. Like, people have been shitting on Venom: The Last Dance, and that movie was really, really excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. Super surprised. And I'm happy to see that via that same popularity tracking, with a 6.2, 40,000 reviews, it was able to hit the top on the IMDb charts most popular movies.
I mean, the thing about Venom, for me, again, all anecdotal, but the thing about Venom for me is that I heard a lot of people talking shit about it before it came out because they just wanted to shit all over the Sony Marvel stuff. And I think I've even mentioned this, that now that the movie's out, I don't hear anybody talking about it, which is good for good or for ill, right?
Yeah.
Like, nobody's also talking about how it actually, they changed their minds on cinema or anything like that. But they're also not just, like, crapping on it either. I think it pretty much landed exactly the way that I expected it to. People that are fans of that ate it up. People that aren't fans aren't offended, which is like something really rare to say nowadays about a film. So good on Venom for figuring that out.
Yeah, I'm excited for Kraven. I will be the first person to line up and admit that. I'm super excited to see Kraven when it comes out.
I'm down on the meta for
December 13th.
Kraven. I want to see what the fuck happens with that movie just in the grand scheme of things. And like from a film perspective, I think it looks like it's a fun time. I have such a like light understanding of kind of the Kraven lore as it is, because like I think there was like a 6-issue Deadpool arc that used Kraven as like a character. Very specifically, I remember there being a lot of Hollywood movie posters redone with Kraven in them, like as the bit for that arc. And so like my understanding of like Kraven as a character, my love or my knowledge is very, very, very shallow. So like I don't know what to really expect about the movie in terms of story, but from what I've seen, it looks like a badass little action film. And like the idea of like the family of hunters and what that kind of ascribes to in the world of Spider-Man in terms of like having whatever in them, right? Whatever magic like Marvel comes up with to put inside Kraven. Like I'm down for all of it, but there's nothing about that movie that is like, again, I don't expect it to come out and save Sony Marvel in any way.
No,
right?
I think it's going to be like probably the sunsetting of the Sony Cinematic Spider-Man universe, or whatever it is, SSU, Sony Spider-Man universe, SSMU. This year we had like, those were the Marvel movies we had this year. Like, that's the really crazy thing, is we had Deadpool Wolverine. That movie exists. That is the technical only Marvel movie that came out this year. And then we had Madam Web, Venom: The Last Dance, and we're going to have Kraven the Hunter. Sony Spider-Man universe, 3 movies in 2024. And I enjoyed Madam Web. What I enjoy most about Madam Web is the fact that a producer actually said, we had to set it in 2003 so we could feature Toxic by Britney Spears. And then Deadpool Wolverine comes on, and he's opening, dancing to Bye Bye Bye. And I lean over and I'm like, is it 2002? Is that this season, the year of this movie taking place in? And I got hit by the people I was seeing the movie with. Because, no, you're stupid. Why would you make that joke? But, like, why would a producer say we had to set this movie in the past to use a song from the past?
Because they didn't have a real answer, and that was the best thing they could pull out in the moment.
No. They couldn't say that initially we intended the Peter Parker born in this movie to be Andrew Garfield, but then, we can't have that happen, or even Tom Holland. But we couldn't have that work because, people suck. Marvel wouldn't let
Any
us
more
say
movie
Spider-Man.
stuff before we get back to the game stuff, or where are you at?
I'm trying to think. Movie-wise, no, I didn't really watch anything this week. I really want to watch Saturday Night now that it's available at home, so I'm trying to figure out a night to do that. No, I think that's all the movie talk. I do want to talk one streaming thing while we're still here. Remember AP Bio? The Glenn Howerton starring Seth Meyers created show that was 2 seasons broadcast and then a Peacock original. It just
what
came
was the deal?
to Netflix.
He was like court mandated to teach at this shitty school or something.
No.
He was
a Harvard professor who had a meltdown, so he like ran back to his hometown in Toledo, Ohio, because I remember you were living in Ohio at the time and people hated the show shitting on Toledo. Like, that was the thing that you shared with me that made me just smile from all of my pores. So he's at his hometown, like recovering from this huge breakdown, this public breakdown, and then he convinced the principal at the local high school to let him teach a class.
Okay, I just remember there was some reason why he was stuck there and not somewhere else, and I thought it was a little bit more forced than that, but I guess it was just his own.
No, it's just his own hubris coming back to bite him in the ass. It's on Netflix now, which is just crazy when you talk about everything you were talking about before, where like how streaming product and what was, initially meant to be like an original or an exclusive, like that has just gone out the window. I think you can buy the first season of Frasier Boston. I'm still calling it Frasier Boston, Sejohn. I'm sorry. On Amazon now. Like they're just selling it. And it's like, so then Paramount, if you're allowing that, what is the drive to come to your streaming service?
Yeah.
Right?
It's all wild. I mean, all I can think of is a couple of weeks ago when we were together and standing there in the diner watching the preview for Kung Fu Panda 4, and you
Kung Fu Panda 3.
Audibly,
it was Kung Fu Panda 3.
But one of the Kung Fu Pandas, but came on the screen, and you were just like, "That's not a Netflix original." And I was like, "No, it's not." And you were like, "Okay, but it's calling itself a Netflix original." And as we watched the rest of the preview, we noted, yeah, it does call itself Netflix original. Like, but then we also noted this preview is also completely like all of the written language in the preview was in like Mandarin or something. Like we were like, that's not, oh, wait a minute, this is also not the American preview for this. So then we got to talking about the idea that like, well, this is definitely a preview for this movie out of market. And I'm sure in a market out of the US, Netflix does own this. And as we have talked many times, we get these things that are called Netflix originals or Hulu originals. Like they all do this, like where they talk about how they are for original to them because they're the ones hosting it or platforming it in this region. But they didn't have anything to do with the actual like making of, right? And in some ways, that really has come back to bite a lot of them in the ass because there's so many people now out there that do nothing but bitch about like Netflix shows or bitch about Amazon shows or bitch about Hulu shows, but then they'll mention something like I remember for a long time Riverdale was just catching it like
everybody thought it was a Netflix show.
Well, yeah, Netflix was catching all these strays because they kept talking about how stupid Riverdale was, and I had to keep explaining to people time and time again that it's not a Netflix show. It's a CW show that Netflix just then streams. But I don't know if people were VPNing into like Canada or some shit, but like they were just like, oh yeah, that Netflix original Riverdale, and it's like that's not what that is, right? And I mean, the same thing happened when people lost their minds over everything that happened with Netflix and Cuties, right? Where they were just like, oh my God, the people at Netflix, like, they need to answer for why they would make a film like this, completely ignoring the fact that it was an existing documentary, award-winning in Europe, before Netflix picked it up to just be the international streamer for it. But they went and they slapped their name on it, and people really took him to fucking task because they didn't like the subject matter in it. And like that's the price you pay as Netflix when you pull moves like that, right? Is like you are putting your stamp on it and saying this is something that we are putting out in the world with our name on it. And like people holding to that, but it has muddied the waters so much now. I mean, the amount of people that I have heard bitching about the Netflix Lord of the Rings series online like is nuts. And luckily I don't have to be the ones in those conversations, but people in those conversations being like, well, this is actually an Amazon show? What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, it is this thing, because when you are saying that it's original programming and claiming ownership, you are going to claim all of the negativity that comes along with it. And you know what? If we're going to speak about taking responsibility for what comes along with it and Netflix, that seems like the perfect segue into the Tyson fight. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Fight that occurred.
Why am I chicken?
Now I just want chicken. Show's over. I'm getting chicken. No, because I mean I had no shit in the game. I was not invested in this at all. This was supposed to happen in July, but Tyson had stomach ulcers, precluded him from fighting back in July. But they still scheduled it, and it happened. It's happened now. Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson. We are now living in a post-Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson society. And of all the post-societies that we're living in, this might be my favorite, because I was fucking sick and tired of it in July. and then it just got pushed to happen in
Yeah,
November. So
I mean, I've talked about this whole setup before with the Logan brothers and the Paul brothers.
the
Sorry,
Paul brothers, yeah.
with the Paul brothers and all in their history in trying to get into UFC, boxing, like trying to get into these particular sports. And there's just a lot to be said about the ways in which like the mechanisms that are available to these guys because they have billions of dollars at their disposal, like to just kind of jump in and just kind of do what they want, and the ways in which they then really highlight some other issues with the sport, because I think that's one of the other big things about this fight that I think is rubbing people the wrong way, is on top of everything, it really exposed some shit about like some of the people involved in this sport that we hold up as the heroes of this sport. It seems like it was a bad move for everybody involved to do this thing. I don't know. I don't know what the hell happened.
All I can think of is Tommy Tokes in the Jeff and the Weed Factory episode of American Dad. Tommy Tokes played masterfully by Snoop Dogg, and at the end of it, he's like, why did I even have this contest? I had very little to gain from a financial aspect. And it's like, that's exactly what this felt like. Like, here's the thing that my father, like, I was aware of this, right? Because I unfortunately was following it. I knew that we'd probably talk about it brief on the show at some point. But my father this morning, do you know that guy that won got $40 million for that fight? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, and Tyson got 20. And I go, right. And now we're going to pause and we're going to make sure that you understand, Father, that Jake Paul was getting $40 million regardless of winning or losing that fight. $40 million was his paycheck for that event, regardless of the outcome. And Mike Tyson was making $20 million. I want to say regardless of the outcome, but I feel like if Mike Tyson had knocked out Jake Paul, he probably like would have been in breach of contract and not gotten that money. Like
we don't know that for sure. We like that's part of the problem.
That's a personal feeling.
There's a lot of people. Yeah. There are a lot of people that are speculating right now on what things were supposed to happen and all of that, and whether or not there were clauses in contracts that wouldn't have allowed certain things to happen and all of this shit. Because the structurally the important thing to remember is that this was a fight set up by Jake Paul and his whole side of things. This is something that
his
at
MVP
some point Jake
Productions,
Paul said,
yeah.
Right. He said, I want to fight Mike Tyson. What can we do to make this happen? He was always going to be the one to come out making more money in all of this because it was always his idea. You would think as a guy that he would be willing to take less money and pay Tyson more, but there's a couple of things about that. I mean, the popularity of who Tyson is right now versus Paul, there's a big flip on that right now. People don't want to admit it, but as much as I hate the Paul brothers, like they are popular. It's why
they're able to do this, right?
Well, it's why it's so gross, the things that they do, right? Is because there is a level of popularity that I just don't think that they hold themselves responsible to. But there's that. Then the other side of that is it's also, as you pointed out, his production company that's handling so much of this. They're the ones that are organizing the venue. They're the ones that are organizing the contracts with Netflix. They're the ones making sure everybody is they are making more money than Tyson because Tyson is putting himself in there, and that's it. Like, there's Tyson and his team. That's it. Everything else being done for this is being done by the other side, and that's not usual. Usually, the fighters are just that. They are just there to show up with them and their team. They're not usually so deeply involved in the investment of the rest of the production of this event, which is where people are then starting to wonder what was supposed to, what was this event supposed to look like? Did we see exactly what they intended us to see? Or was there actually a possibility that Tyson could have won and we just watched the man with it? We'll never know. We're just never going to know. But getting to what I said before about kind of exposing some of this shit with where boxing is at in 2024, especially a match that half the people that watched it don't even know if it counted as an actual match on somebody's record or if it was just a fun time two guys were having. Like, and then there were other fights involved in this event too. And what were those fights like? What are those going to mean in the long run for those particular athletes? There's just so much that's like unknown as an audience member now that it makes it unfun, at least for me.
So, as somebody who I did not watch the whole thing, I was jumping between Cobra Kai and the event because while it started at 8:00, there were 4 fights on the bill, and the Paul Tyson fight was the final event. It was the co-main event because there was also a rematch between I want to make sure I get their names correct, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. They're like super lightweight boxers, female boxers. And honestly, getting to watch that match, getting to watch their 10-round, 2 minutes per round fight made the entire event worthwhile for me, right? Because that was like real boxing. But then the end of that was super controversial because Amanda Serrano, she broke the records for most punches landed in a female fighter CompuBox match. Right? Like, that's the thing. She landed more punches, but she lost by decision. And it really feels like she lost by decision because she got headbutt by her opponent, Katie Taylor, and was bleeding the whole fight. So, like, it kind of made it look like she took more damage, even though she was outputting more damage the entire fight. And Katie Taylor would headbutt her a total of 6 times during the fight, which would eventually lead to her losing an entire point at the end of the match because of the unsportsmanlike conduct of continually headbutting your opponent. And you can have the guys who are doing commentary talk about like, well, that's just going to happen when it's a southpaw fighting somebody who's right-handed, right? You're going to get into that. But Sejohn, there's been like hundreds of years of boxing. I have never seen in a fight as much headbutting as I saw during this event. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's just what happens. Left-handed fighters fight right-handed fighters all the time. And there's not 6 headbutts in the match. That was a weird thing to me. That then, like, by decision, it went to the woman who did not break a record for punches landed. Like, what are you judging as a judge then? Like,
yeah, I will say that there is also something. I don't know how true this is of these particular athletes. I'm not familiar with these fighters and like their history.
Yeah.
But there is also a larger kind of issue with things like boxing right now, where there are people in this sport that now grew up watching MMA and UFC fighting and like kickboxing, and like there's a level of which this stuff is slowly all starting to kind of bleed together. I think I've mentioned this.
Yeah,
before,
there's
but
definitely
like the
been
ways
that.
in which, and there's just a way in which some of this stuff that you're seeing, like the headbutting, there's a level of forgiveness on the fandom and then on the commentators there because they're so used to watching UFC where people are doing that shit and it's not against the rules. So like.
Yeah, but it's boxing, right? Like, it's
really,
weird to have.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, it was a heck of a fight. They both did it. But then at the end of it, when it's like, and the winner is Taylor, it's like, that's really surprising because it feels like you guys were watching a different fight than I was watching. And then based on the reaction from everybody, the audience kind of feels that same way. That the judges might have been watching a different fight. Or their metrics, we just don't know what they're judging on, right? It's sort of like
I think the best bit I saw on it was that I guess the judges are watching through a Netflix stream as well if they're missing this much of the fight.
Yeah, that's the other thing, and that's the thing that I want to focus on at this point, right? I was very happy. Like, I viewed the Paul Tyson fight like the first Rocky. I didn't want Mike Tyson to get knocked out, right? I wanted him to go the distance, and he lasted the 8 rounds against Jake Paul. So it's like, Rocky, spoilers for Rocky, a movie that came out in 1976. Rocky doesn't win in the first movie. His victory is just that he can survive the fight as an amateur against the pro heavyweight title holder, Apollo Creed. It's not until the second movie that he actually wins his fight. But it's not about winning in the first movie. It is about just being able to offer a competition to Apollo Creed. And that's kind of crazy. Like that is what that film is about. And also that Sylvester Stallone wrote it. Because you don't think of Sylvester Stallone as like the creative drive behind Rocky. but he really was like he wrote that story.
Yeah, that's his movie. There's
Yeah.
a reason why he is who he is in Hollywood, and it is because of the fact that he poured his heart and soul into Rocky
That
Balboa.
film.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So like watching Mike Tyson, I even said it to Siege, and I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm in a Rocky movie right now, and I'm just watching this fight, and I'm just hoping, man, I hope Tyson doesn't go down. I don't want this chuckle fuck, this guy I don't really like, to knock out Mike Tyson, because then that will forever be a thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. And then there is that moment where like Tyson got in a really nice hit, but then he like kind of backed off. And I think that is the video that I've been seeing that people have been like, this is that moment where he realized, oh, I need to back off or I might be in breach of contract. So yeah, but let's not talk. So that's all that. We're done with the fight part. The more important thing about this Paul Tyson fight is the fact that this was really Netflix like dress rehearsal for being your location to watch the 2 Christmas football games. A lot of Christmas in this episode, for one being recorded on November 17th. I apologize.
I think it's even bigger than that. I think it's even bigger than that. I think it's just live events in general. This was Netflix really pushing it to see how much they could push themselves and their structure, their infrastructure, for live events that draw in more than just, your 3 million episode viewers, because they've done live stuff with like talk shows. They've done live like releases of
they
things
did
like
the Kobayashi hot dog fight, right? Chestnut Kobayashi,
right, which was a fun thing, niche thing for people to watch, but it was never going to draw in the same numbers that, as you pointed out, the NFL, or we also know they've been talking to the WWE, plus whatever other stuff. I would not surprise me if in 5 years we hear about a streaming service putting in for the Super Bowl, right? Or sorry, what could we call it? The big game.
I think we can actually
right?
technically we can call it the Super Bowl because we're off
more
season.
Of this,
but also I don't even care. Just come for us,
but there's
NFL.
more of this stuff coming, right?
Yeah.
Like there's more of this kind of events coming, and this was Netflix really kind of I think trying to get a gauge of where they're at, because they don't know until they try, right? And so they definitely put some weight behind it, right? I'm sure that they bought up some extra server space and got on some crews and told everybody to be on red alert for this big event, and they still had trouble. But people out there who think that somehow this is Netflix failing, like, don't know how like the tech industry works at all. Like this was a mild first run. This was a beta test at worst. At best, this was like, the release opening weekend of a video game, and we know how good those go for MMOs nowadays.
They're gonna
right?
patch it. Don't worry. I'm looking at this tweet of DoorDash saw a higher food delivery volume surge during the Tyson fight than the Super Bowl. So they are looking at like, we were bigger than the Super Bowl. Like, that's the thing. Most valuable promotions, like, quote tweeted that, and it's got 3 likes, and one of them is Jake Paul, which I think is just very cute. So it is. It's one of those situations where, like, it saw a lot of numbers. This was a big test, but also I didn't see these issues, right? Like, CJ and I were talking about it. You didn't watch it at all, right? I don't think you're on Netflix right now. Aren't you taking a break from that? Is that not one of your? I don't want to.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't. Yeah, we don't have Netflix in the house, and I was watching updates online, but that was about it. I wasn't live streaming it in any fashion.
Once it got to the co-main events, we watched the whole thing, and I saw online all of the people complaining about, issues with the stream and it being pixelated, or like apparently Netflix did have a server crash at some point based on what I'm reading. And Sejohn asked me, he's like, how was it for you? And I'm like, honestly, it was so good. It feels like all these complaints about it are gaslighting. Like, it's so unbelievable to me that people had issues with it, because I experienced 0 issues.
I mean, one of the big things that we have talked about over the last few months is coming to terms with the fact that the voices that we are hearing online are clearly not the voice of the majorities, and we need to not ascribe them as such, right? We still do, because that's just like the nature of, you read a story after story after story of people having these issues, but then remembering how the world has shook out over the last few months in so many different ways, in some venues much more extreme than this. Turns out that the number of people that we're hearing bitch bitching online don't necessarily represent a large group of people at all. But this is especially true if you look at Netflix in the history of the online discourse of Netflix versus the reality. The amount of times Netflix has made a move that people are like, "This is it. This is the Netflix killer. They're going to lose it now." All they ever do is go up in subscriber numbers. Every time they raise their price and people go, "This is it, I'm canceling. Everybody's going to cancel now. Nobody I know has Netflix anymore." Their subscriber base goes up. And importantly, they're always quick to point out not just the amount of money we're making, literally the number of people signing on and subscribing. So it's not that we are charging more so we can afford to lose some people. We also are gaining people on top of on top of charging more. So like the amount of people that have been bitching about this online versus the reality is that Netflix has come out and talked about how much viewership they had and the numbers that they're touting for people that did watch it. I don't think as many people had problems as people want to talk about, especially because like some of the like this is not me saying nobody had issues streaming, but some of the issues that people have been posting about were legitimate issues with like technology and stuff. Somebody bitching about not being able to watch the Netflix stream, but they're running off of like a Roku from 2017. Like, yeah, man, sorry. You like at some point, like as somebody that worked for Netflix and answered these phone calls, they got phone calls about these types of streaming issues all the time. All day, every day, they are answering calls from little old ladies that have like an old school Samsung TV that had Netflix built in that their grandkids got for them 10 years ago because they didn't want to make it hard for them to have 5 different things in the house, so they just bought a TV that had everything on it. Well, lo and behold, yeah, sorry, that TV's just not supported anymore. Or yeah, that TV has an update. Have you ever thought about updating your TV? No, because who the fuck could have? But unfortunately, that's how technology works, right? There's a number of complaints about this that I'm sure are legitimate. I don't think that number's as big as everybody thinks it is right now.
I agree. I mean, I think that's because like it is to see everything, and I'm like, I mean, that would suck if I were watching that way. But then I'm on a wired connection, right? Like we made sure we're gonna wire up because we had some issues, right? A month ago, I called Verizon to be like, yo, we're having a little bit of issue with this. Can you like run the test to make sure that we don't have any issues? And they ended up being like, oh, we're gonna have to reset the node that connects to your house because we see an issue there. So like that, while we have a Verizon router, because of how much gaming goes on in this house, we have a secondary router just for gaming to make sure that like those streams are on a separate set of bandwidth and a separate connection, so it's not going to be affected. I mean, we're recording this right now, and that is a breakout box. This was not always wired, right? But we have been a wired connection for this show since the start of the pandemic because I wanted to make sure that we didn't get like computerized or lose connection or anything like that, right? Like it is,
Yeah.
if you're going to be serious, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to be serious about it, but like you do need to understand that the platform you are connecting to is just one of 1,000 dominoes between you watching something.
And then we're all encouraged to do other things too at this time, like running a VPN. And
Yeah.
I think it's a really smart, intelligent thing to do. It's a safe thing to do. There's also a side of that where people run a VPN very specifically when they watch things like Netflix so that they can maybe access some material they otherwise couldn't and things like that. But the amount of people that were having issues and the warning that they were getting on their screen was this may be because you're using a VPN, try turning that off, and their immediate reaction being like, no, fuck you, I always watch Netflix with a VPN, I shouldn't have to do that. But then also wondering, why is this stream not working? It's not hard math, guys. Like there's a level of which like there was a level at which there was some very obvious incompetence going on with the ways in which people interact with streaming. I mean, the amount of people asking for their money back. But it's like it's not a pay-per-view fight, man.
Right.
Like if you've got Netflix for the month, have you been watching other things on Netflix? I would understand the argument that I didn't have Netflix, but they were offering this thing because of the fight, so I signed up. And then the reason I signed up, it doesn't work. Yeah, you should. But
Then
you know what you
yes,
often
as a
get when you-
consumer, yeah.
But you know what you often get when you sign up with Netflix? Usually you get some free time with Netflix. Sometimes it's only a couple of weeks. A lot of the times it's like a full month. When did you sign up for Netflix that you're not already on the free version at the moment anyway? Like there's all of this kind of like stuff going on where people are just like people are so quick to want to jump on Netflix because it's the cool thing to do, because they feel like they're owed something in some way. All of this shit that's going on with this, and it's just really kind of, I just roll my eyes at it right now. A lot of that is because of the fact that we have been really shown over the last few weeks how much this vocal group online truly is just the vocal minority. So like there is part of it is that, but there's this other side of it is just I've also talked to plenty of people that watch this fight without issue. So I just don't I find it really hard to believe that this was as big of an issue as the internet wants me to believe it is.
Yeah. And again, and that's the thing. And I know that like I've cleaned mine up, but to have seen none of it, it really did feel like I don't think any of this happened. And I don't want to like deny that it may have occurred for some people, but it was just the complaints are so diametrically opposed to my experience with it that it is hard for me to believe it was that bad. I believe that there were some connection problems, but I think that there are connection problems across the board for that stuff. Something I didn't even consider until we were having this conversation, Sejohn. Did they run ads during this event? Because they have the ad-supported system of Netflix. If you were on ad-supported, did you not have access to it? These are things I didn't even consider until you were talking about the VPNs and the promotions that were offered on this. Because, like, the way it was structured, there was no break for advertisements. So if you're on an ad-supported model of Netflix and it's just going to go to ads whenever the fuck it wants to, that would piss me off. So, like, is the way you
easily break your stream, right? Because of the ways in which ads are loaded in versus the content is loaded in, you could see there definitely being basically it's doing a reconnection every time it goes back and forth between the two. And yeah, I could definitely see that if you're constantly reaching out and doing that reset, that reconnection, at some point one of them doesn't take properly and suddenly your whole stream crashes. I believe that.
Yeah. I want to just confirm the Netflix tiers. Plans and pricing, thank you. So yeah, support with ads is still lowest. It does exist, but it will not show me. Oh, there it is. Standard with ads is $6.99 a month. Standard regular is $15.49 a month. That is a huge jump between those two. So like, I don't know. Like now I'm curious. I'm going to look this up. Vamp a little while I see if Tyson Paul was available on standard with ads.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do know that there was a lot of advertisement money being pumped into this, but as usual with these things, it was all a lot of like, we're going to put this on the mat or we're going to put this on the walls type shit, or Logan's going to walk out with his fucking prime pants on or whatever the hell they were, his diamond studded pants.
$1 million pants. Ridiculous.
No, I mean the entire thing was a way for Logan Paul to show off his success.
Yes, it was.
And that's always been what it is for him and for his brother in this regard, in doing this stuff with the sports stuff. And it's part of the reason why it has always rubbed me the wrong way personally. And I know that there are other people out there that agree with this, that like it's not about them coming into the sport because of a love of the sport and wanting to excel at the sport and work their way through all of the things you do for the sport. It is about the ability for him to say, I had so much money I could pay Mike Tyson to box me. And as an added twist to that, he gets to say he won. But like, as people are right to point out, fucking Mike Tyson's 60 years old. He's 58 at this point, right? Like this is not fighting Mike Tyson when he was in his prime, right? Like, but you get to do that. You get to pay an old man to come on stage with you. You go 8 rounds with him, and like it looks good enough for enough people to be happy. Like, and there you go. Like that's the life that he leads, is he gets to do this kind of stuff. And it is, so part of it would be a little bit of jealousy, like that I don't have the lifestyle to be able to do this. I'm not jealous he got into a ring with Mike Tyson. No fucking thanks. I could be a billionaire right now, and that would not be something at the top of my list of shit to do. But like, this is the kind of thing, is if he want it, he got it. Like that is the Logan Paul lifestyle right now, and it's kind of just it's not fun to me to watch a man live that way. Like I don't like it's not. As much as Brewster's Millions made it seem like it would be a fun thing to watch somebody do that kind of shit, it actually turns out watching a man do that in real life is just kind of boring to me.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I would fight Mike Tyson if given the opportunity. I don't think I would particularly win. I don't know if I could even last, like if it were a multi-round event. But there's that inherent competitiveness inside Devin Decker that, like, yeah, I kind of want to fight Mike Tyson, right? I'll lose, but I'll lose with fucking style. Like, what the hell?
I want pictures of you fighting. This is not. I don't even want to be in these pictures. I want pictures of you. I want pictures of you fighting Mike Tyson, a la knockout. Like I want some like artistic takes of Devin fighting Tyson that remind me of knockouts.
Do you mean Punch Out?
Punch Out. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, do it, right? If you're out there and you're creative, that would be wonderful. But no, like I'd love to fight Mike Tyson. That'd be incredible, right? I'm even going to say, I'm going to give myself a year from November 15th, right? So when the fight actually happened, to maybe beat Mike Tyson in the Punch-Out game for the NES, because I've never done it. I've gotten through to the Tyson fight, but I've never beaten Mike Tyson, and I'm giving myself a year to have fast enough finger speed to beat Mike Tyson in Punch-Out. But also in real life, if Mike Tyson was like, Devin, I want to fight you, I would fight him. Right? But I also would not call up Mike Tyson. And there's the inherent Jake Paul difference, right? Jake Paul contacts Mike Tyson's people and says, I want to fight you, Mike Tyson. I would never make that phone call. It would need to be like through whatever like shenanigans happen that I wind up in a boxing ring with Mike Tyson. Let's be honest. Sejohn and I have been toying. I don't think it'll ever come to fruition, but if it ever did, we both like beat 'em up style games. If a Say Report inspired beat 'em up could ever happen, Mike Tyson would probably be one of the bosses. Because certainly right now one of the bosses is Robot Orson Welles. To share from our idea notebook with you, Orson Welles, a robotic Orson Welles, is most definitely one of the bosses in the Say Report beat 'em up game. That is the pipiest of pipe dreams. I would also love it if we had to fight Mike Tyson, where we just fall through like a roof and we land in a boxing ring against Mike Tyson. That's how it would happen, right? Like there has to be shenanigans that lead up to it. But yeah, so I mean, and as far as a test for the infrastructure, I don't think, I mean, like there is an inherent, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not entertainment, but like the spectacle of it, right? There's an inherent like curiosity based upon what it is you're watching with Jake Paul's going to fight Mike Tyson that I feel brings more eyes to this than even the fact that one of the Christmas games is
morbid
the
curiosity.
Chiefs.
Is that what you're getting at?
No, not morbid curiosity. Like there's an entertainment factor, but there's something about so it's a morbid curiosity is a pretty
Schadenfreude.
solid. Yeah. Like there's all sorts of like terms for it, but like there's a reason why you would want to watch the Paul Tyson fight. And if you already have Netflix, then like why not? Like it was easy enough to just load it up after like it was 11 o'clock is when I put on and just kept watching the event, right? It was from 11 to 1 o'clock. And like it was mostly background noise, and it's because what else is on right now? It's Friday night. I think only one of the late night shows is new on Fridays, right? I think Kimmel and Fallon are both reruns, and it's only Colbert who does a fresh one on Fridays, and that's because he records in the day, right? He records the Late Show very early, actually. So it was something new and live, and it didn't really cost me anything. Now, on Christmas Day, I feel like there are going to be less people who are going to be interested in watching the Steelers and the Chiefs and whoever they're playing. I know because the Steelers and the Chiefs historically play on Christmas Day. I'm not 100% sure of who. I think the Steelers are against the Ravens. I'll get that, right? I don't want to feel good. Also, according to USA Today, all tiers of Netflix subscriptions gave you access to the Paul Tyson fight. But only the main card was exclusively through Netflix. All the prelim matches were on Most Valuable Promotions YouTube. It was on Netflix Sports YouTube and To Dumb. So like 75% of this event you could watch without a Netflix subscription as well, which is interesting. So those people who were complaining about it, do we know that they were watching it on Netflix? Or like if I'm watching it on YouTube, is it not as good?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a different thing.
I would like to talk to someone that really had problems to kind of talk to them about what the night was like for them. Because, like I said, I do believe that there were legitimately people out there that have problems because there always is.
There always
and
are, yeah.
And this was a Netflix stress test. But the ways in which the internet would have you believe that this didn't work for anybody, I am just not. I just can't get on that.
Yeah,
on
I
that
can't
board
co-sign
yet.
that
I
either.
can't get on that. Yeah, because like there's this inherent way in which the internet reacts to Netflix news in general that already makes me distrustful, especially in the early November of 2024. I am just not able to buy the vocal like groupings of on the internet at the moment. So forgive me if you had issues with the Netflix experience while watching the fight. I would really like to hear what it was like, because so far anybody that's talked to me about it or that I have seen talk about it has always come with a grain of salt.
Yeah. All right. And I found it. So the live on 12:25 games that will be on Netflix is the Chiefs versus the Steelers. So I messed that up. Apologies. And then it's the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Houston Texans. And I honestly, as big as a deal as the NFL is in America, I don't think either of those games are going to draw as many eyes as this spectacle that was the Paul Tyson fight.
I don't know. There are people out there predicting more, but as I just said, who can trust the internet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The big thing for me is, are those games going to be considered in season?
Oh, they're definitely in season games. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are,
Okay.
And it's streaming at least one holiday game each year as part of a 3-season deal. So there's going to be Netflix NFL 2025, 2026, 2027. And yeah, they're games that count. It's Christmas game day. And I mean, like, that's the thing. I mean, I don't know how much football you watch, Sejohn, but they have been carved up into fiefdoms like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like,
well, I mean, they've got Thursday Night Football now. They've got Monday Night Football now. They've got whoever owns
Sunday
what
Night
broadcast
Football
on Sundays.
That's NBC. So NBC gets Sunday nights, ABC, ESPN gets Monday nights, and Thursday Night Football for the beginning of the season, it is passed around before becoming an exclusive, originally just on NFL Network, but now that belongs to Amazon Prime.
But there's more than one game on a Sunday, though.
Right, no, Sunday Night Football specifically.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
But as far as broadcasting of football games go, it's all over the map, and it always has been.
Yeah, but CBS and Fox tend to be the affiliates who get Sunday day games. So then NBC is guaranteed to carry the Sunday night game. ABC and ESPN, because they're both Disney, they get to carry the Monday night game. And yeah, but then CBS and Fox get access to all the other games. Like, that's how those have divvied them up. And it's interesting, right? Because, like, what is it? ABC doesn't really program anything against football on Sunday nights, but then on Monday nights, NBC is like, yeah, we got The Voice, and America's Got Talent, and all of these other shows that, like, people sort of care about, right? I can't tell you what's on ABC Sundays. Like, usually movies, right? They do, like, Disney movies. I think one of them is this weekend. Like, they'll do Frozen or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's been a while since I've ever watched, like, over-the-air TV, and it's been even longer for you. So, but yeah. So there's that. So we did say we were going to make this a sandwich, and we gave you a nice thick slice of a Netflix meat and a little slice of River City Girls 2 as sponsored content. Back to video games. I want to talk a little bit about the Splintered Fate, Sejohn. You did not get it on Steam, right? You've only still done it on Switch.
Yeah, I've only done it on Switch. I haven't touched it on Steam yet.
So I would ask you, if you're able to do like 4 runs between this recording and our next recording, and see what you think about the Switch version. Because there's been some updates. The
Steam version, you mean?
No, specifically the Switch version. I don't want you to have to buy a game. If you're going to buy the game anyway, I would recommend it to anybody. A bunch of people joined us on the Splintered Fate journey when it came out. Thank you to that, like Claude and Zach, like people that people know from the show that we mentioned. Like, they bought the game and we had fun on Switch. The Steam version is hyper stable, but they've also updated the Switch alongside the release on Steam. So I'd like to see, like, we had some complaints about the Switch version, I'd like to see what you think about the new updates to it. I'll even join you for a couple of them. I love the game, right?
Okay.
I just got through.
Yeah.
I've cleared it twice. I've cleared it as Michelangelo. I've cleared it as Raphael. And as Raphael, I did it at like heat level 1, to use Hades terms for it being a roguelite. And it's like, it's so good on Steam. I beat Shredder in 22 minutes as Raphael because I was just able to turn him into a damage factory. And it actually felt like the stuff I was pumping into him to make him do more damage was being reflected. Where like the Switch version, early days of this game, like it'd feel like, yeah, no, you can do a critical hit every 2 hits. But like that didn't mean I actually felt I was doing damage to anybody.
Right.
So it's like they've done a lot of good work on it, and I did a Switch run through as well as Michelangelo and had a blast doing it. He's probably my favorite turtle in the game, just in terms of his DPS and then how that can factor into like health regeneration and stuff later on in the game. And then probably Raph, and then Leo and Donatello probably tied. I don't think either of them are particularly suited to run-throughs of the game, though I do want to beat it as Donatello because I want to be able to upgrade his inspirations, which means beating it at heat level 1 minimum to get one of his bandanas. Yeah, Splintered Fate, I was reminded of how good a game Splintered Fate was. That is the thing that happened this week, and I'm really happy about that.
Nice.
Just in terms of everything that I've been like playing and messing around with. And I'm very excited to jump into Dragon Quest 3 once No New Game November is over. How has your time with Brothership gone? You said that you were going right back to it from... did you make any more progress there, or?
Yeah, so I've officially gotten to past the new lighthouse. What do they call them?
The Great Lighthouse.
Yeah. So I think I caught up to about where you had said that you had gotten to before you had put it down for the month. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. I will say that it's 7 hours is what it seems to have taken me to get to this point. Feels like it's about a fifth of the game from what the big map looks like and all that. So that feels pretty on track with what some people have said about this being like a 35 to 40 hour game and all that. Like, so there is something about the loop of it that does feel fun to play and like get into. I still think that there's some really thin aspects of it. I was trying to really kind of, something was like scratching my brain as I was playing it the first time and trying to figure out what it was. Like it was reminding me of something, and it wasn't the other Mario and Luigi games, but I was like, there is something though that this is hitting for me, and I was trying to figure out what it is. And I realized that the navigation system, like the way in which you navigate around the world of Brothership, is really, really, really similar to the ways in which you navigate the worlds of the Mario Rabbids games, especially the second one, especially the Sparks of Hope one, where you kind of have free range to kind of wander around anywhere. There's little puzzles throughout the game that then open up more areas for you to go. Sometimes you're looping back around through areas and like discovering new ways to get around things. You're coming back later when you've got new powers in order to kind of Metroidvania style unlock new pathways and things like that. There is a lot of it that is borrowing from what you do in the Mario Rabbids games as far as getting around those worlds, especially with the like collectible nature of, now that you have these new abilities, go back and like collect everything from this island so that you can power up and you can get better weapons and you can get better gear. Like, so there is so much of it that is hitting that for me, and that's when it really started to click for me. I was like, okay, that is what I like that about those games, so like let's do that. But the other side of those, the Mario Rabbids games, is that there is such a beautifully intricate, well-crafted fight system that when you get into the encounters and the fights in those games, they also are just like mind-blowingly fun and fantastic. It's what makes the Mario Rabbids games as successful as they are. And that is where I think I'm really struggling with some of the stuff going on with Mario and Luigi right now, is I'm getting into too many fights too often that just feel like it's the same fight over and over, and I don't have too much I can do right now in terms of abilities. That's growing, though. One of the big things I think I mentioned last time when we talked about this was how I was like, I feel like this game is moving too slow to dole out things, but I do feel like they're there. I'm finally getting at that point with the fight system, where I finally have the ability to do some things with my BP Like that just unlocked for me like early like a couple of days ago, where after I had been playing for 4 hours, I finally had the ability to access this whole other way in fights, would give me like some stronger hits and things like that. I'm getting a little bit more into like the pattern like work and new baddies that are giving me new like things to try as I like they're very, very slowly building some very intricate systems in that game. And once they kind of get there, they're really fun. But man, is it a slog in the beginning to get to those points. I finally feel like I'm there. So I'm curious to hear what you think when you finally get back to it next month. Moving forward from this point, I'm going to keep moving forward from this point because I do finally feel like there's some interesting stuff going on in this game in a way that I didn't 3 hours ago in this game. So I was holding out hope that it would get to the point where it felt like there was like some stuff to explore and some things to do, and I finally got there. But the fact that it took me 7 hours to really truly get there says something.
So the one thing I want to ask, right, and as spoiler free as possible, have you experienced what you would consider a boss fight yet?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Okay. I don't feel like I ever had a boss fight moment. And that is one of my bigger complaints about my time spent with the game.
Well, you also seem to think you couldn't travel the world while you were out and about, and that's like not true. You can set your boat to change currents.
And I did that. I set that, but it just the amount of that it had moved was very small.
Did you also get the speed sailing yet?
No, I had not gotten that. So that's good to know that there is a speed sailing thing that exists. So no, because I had set to switch currents, and then I'm like, and I'll go complete this island, and then by the time I get back to it, hopefully the boat will like be further along, because you're stuck in the current when you're moving. And I'm like, so it'll be stuck in this current, but it'll at least transfer. If I'm close to that or have transferred to that other current, I'll be pretty happy. And that had not happened. And that was the disappointment.
I mean, like, I don't, like, basically constantly running up in the top left is a map of the currents.
Yeah, right.
And, like, you show your boat going along on it, and, like, you definitely will change currents if you set it to while you're doing other things. It's, like, part of how the game expects... It's one of the things about the game being so slow in the beginning is that the eventual loop that I found myself in is that I would set a current, and then I would bounce off to an island somewhere and do some completion stuff, watching the whole time. And once I saw the ship was getting close to the destination I wanted it to be at, I would just use the gold pipe that they give you. Because they give you this whole pipe system, hop back to the boat, and then do what I wanted to do now that it was in the new current. And they want you to do that. It's why the boat moves as slow as it kind of does. But they do eventually give you the ability to then speed it up when you do want to just get where you want to get. So like there is this kind of back and forth you have to do with the naval navigation in order to kind of figure out like, do I want to set it for this current far away and then go do some stuff on some islands, or do I just want to kick it into high gear and just go? Like, what do I want to do? So there's that aspect to it that has, again, took a moment for it to unlock all the bits to do it, but now that I've got that, like, that's one of the loops that I'm kind of in. As far as boss fights go, I would say that I have had at least two, because they're different from regular fights because there's an entire Luigi logic concept to them. Like, there's an entire added box that you get to use in boss fights that you don't get to use in normal fights.
Cool. So I haven't gotten to any of that. So
but how did you get to this point? Because, like, in order to get to this point and, like, did you get through the lighthouse?
No, I did not. My goal was to get to the lighthouse.
Okay, so there's a couple of times. So there's a couple of times where if you go back to islands and do like the more stuff that are on those islands now that they're connected, there's like other areas opened up and like things to do. And the first boss fight I got into was because I went back to an island to go pick up some stuff for some gear. And then when I got there, there was like a whole like element to it. The game very much led me there. The game was very much like, you should go check out this island now that you've gone through it once and see what's changed because you can do this, this, and this. What they didn't tell me is there will be a whole other story element, but that was like a nice surprise because the game tells you to go there, so I went there, and then sure enough when I showed up there was this whole cutscene that introduced this other character that is the boss fight for that island. And then like you go through it and you learn that boss fight. So there was that like cool like introduction to what bosses are there. And then in order to end the Great Lighthouse, there is yet another boss fight.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
There's definitely boss fights. Yeah.
But I did not stumble upon one in my time with the game. And so that was like, and I figured they have to be coming, right? It's a Mario Luigi RPG. The boss fights were the biggest parts of those. So the fact that one didn't happen in all that time, I'm like, this still feels very much like tutorials. So I'm glad that my read on that wasn't 100% off. At the same time as, okay, now I have something really to look forward to.
Well, and
Gosh,
they do that thing where they give you like side quests, and it feels very. This is I don't like the term, and so I'm sorry to use it, but it does feel very much like baby's first RPG in a lot of ways, right? And I think we kind of talked a lot about how like Mario and the Seven Stars kind of had some really cool elements where it was teaching you how to play RPGs, but also at the same time had the ability to make things more complicated or difficult depending on what level of player you are, right? So like Super Mario RPG does a phenomenal job of introducing you to the genre while also being like a really good heavy hitter in the genre. I don't know if Brothership will reach the latter, but it definitely feels like the former. It is very happy to be that kind of game to teach you how to play RPGs. And I think that back to the whole like it doesn't feel like the rest of the Mario and Luigi games in that sense, because in this series there's been six other games, right? Like why I don't need an intro game for game 7, but like here we are. Not everybody has played those games. They were never not always available on mainline consoles like they are with the Switch. So like all of the reasons why you would make this an introductory game I get, which is why I'm willing to forgive so much of it. But I do wonder if like some of what you're talking about is because you're still in that area, and as I've admitted many times already, this game was very slow in this regard, but I wonder if you're still in that element of the game really trying to teach you how to play an RPG and really how to play specifically this RPG, because there are definitely tutorial style things that I feel like I was learning and still have a couple of things to learn. As I said, I only just unlocked this other ability in a fight. Like how many what level are Mario and Luigi for you?
I'm like maybe 6 or 7. I don't even
Are
remember
you
that.
past
Like,
8?
no,
where
I
you start
leveled up.
to
I
where you
ranked
start to
up.
like
So
you
I
did
did
rank up,
rank
so that
up.
would be level 8.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so ranking up, which I thought was going to be the thing to unlock your other fight move, happened, and then it didn't. And I was like, "What?" Okay, but then a couple of story beats later,
It
something happens
happened.
that
Yeah.
unlocks that, and I was like, "Okay." All right, so they're not tied to that, but I do have the ability to pump some stuff here and there. So there's trees and there's systems and there's all of the good stuff you want in an RPG working, and they're slowly getting more intricate and slowly getting more kind of like more in my hands and more I'm starting to feel more in control of the experience than I was in the first few hours. But it is coming along at a snail's pace, and it is my biggest complaint about the game so far, is that what has been a 7-hour experience so far, and not by my own doing. I don't feel like it's because I've been doing too much like dicking around, but rather I feel like this game is so purposefully meticulously planned out, and it's to its detriment.
Yeah, I think because like I think about the first game and the fact that like you get the jump abilities and you have to then like clear a dungeon. It sort of is reminiscent of my complaints about like Breath of the Wild giving you all of the tools from the beginning, or even like Tears of the Kingdom giving you all the tools before you get to actually leave and interact with the world. This game feels like they're doing all of that, and as somebody who's played the other Mario and Luigi games, that is different from how they doled out the powers before, where it's like, here's jumping and here's the soda factory where you have to use jumping to beat everything. And at the end of the soda factory, you find the hammers. So the next area of the game is using the hammers. And then once you're good with the hammers, you beat that dungeon, you wake up on the beach, and that's where you meet the jellyfish sisters who teach you how to use fireballs and electric balls. So, like, it's just giving you all the tools from the beginning seems to be the way that Nintendo is approaching a lot of their games going forward from something like Breath of the Wild. And I'm not necessarily complaining about it, but you feeling like it took a long time before you got to the game feels very reminiscent of that complaint that I generally have.
I mean, yes, except I don't think it's because they've given me all of the powers at once. It's the exact opposite issue. They are taking so long to introduce the elements that I think should be there already. Like
Gotcha, yeah. Okay.
Like, there's a part of it for me that feels like when you kept talking about how they hadn't given you a glider yet in Tears of the Kingdom, and I was like, you get it in the first, like, 15, 20 minutes of that game, and it had turned out that you had just not gone the way the game had told you to go,
Right.
so you didn't ever get the glider. Like, I feel like I'm doing everything I can to listen to this game going where it's telling me to go, and it is giving me what I expect eventually, but man, I go to a place because it says, hey, go to this island, and I'm like, oh, good, I'm going to get to go here, and it's going to unlock this element, and then I'll get to move on to that element. Oh, no, wait, they want me to go here first. Oh, no, wait, they need me to collect that first. Oh, they need me to do this first. There's just so much little in-between stuff going on between the times when I kind of get shown, like, hey, here's a rock, and if only you had a hammer, you could break it. And then it takes, like, an island and a half later for them to actually give me a hammer. And it's just like, okay, good. Now I can go back and break that rock. Except I can't because in true RPG fashion, I've got a 20-minute cutscene, and this thing that I'm told is really important I need to do now. So I need to wait before I go back and break that rock. Except that if I don't wait too long, at some point, whatever side quest is related to me breaking that rock might expire. There's some stuff going on in this game that I don't love that is very genre specific, so I don't really want to hold the game responsible for that. But something that I think the game is responsible for that I think it's really struggling with right now is that it is taking its time to do things, and it doesn't need to be. There's not enough going on in this game for it to justify it taking this long.
I understand that. Well, I mean, I'm very excited to get back to the game. So thank you for sharing your Brothership time with me and letting me know that eventually there will be more. I will say this, as much as it is baby's first RPG, and I know you don't like that phrase, the moments that are like with the little piglet guy, I don't know his name.
Snoutlet, I believe,
Snoutlet,
is
thank
his
you.
name.
Oh, okay, that makes sense based on all the
'Cause he's an
plug
outlet
puns.
in-
Yeah.
in-
And
yeah,
his
right,
outlet
yeah.
his outlet nose looks like a pig snout, but don't call me a pig. Like that moment where he's like, this is how you open the map. You're going to be looking at it a lot. Like, on some level, if you've never played a game before, that's helpful. But as somebody who's played a bunch of RPGs, that kind of just felt like the cynicism of an RPG player. That, like, this is a thing, you're going to have to do a bunch in this game, but you get that. You've done this before. So, like, they did walk a very interesting line between like appealing to beginners but still like finding some sort of humor for people who've maybe played an RPG or 17 before. So I do give them credit for that. But
Well, and they're
yeah.
not wrong in that particular instance. It's an interesting move because I am spending a lot more time doing things, looking at like the ship menu and stuff, and like and the currents and stuff, and trying to figure that out while I'm also it's an interesting game, and I am having fun in a lot of moments of it. I've been loving some of the characters that have shown up, like the dancers that show up and on the Arts Island, and there's Wilma and Build It and Make It that are
Yeah.
the little family that you meet that help you with your tools early on that are a blast. The story that's going on, there's a character arc that has a father named Patriarch that is like a seemingly a larger part of the story than we know yet. That's really interesting, and the stuff with the Watanists and what might be going on. Like, I think there is some really fun stuff in this game, and I just think that there is some gameplay stuff in it that I think a lot of people are just not on board for, and that's totally fair because at the end of the day, it is a video game. So if your game stuff is not as big of a grab as your story stuff and your art and all this other stuff that I think is really fun in this game, like then I can't blame people for not being interested in it. Like, it just really isn't. The stuff that is good about this game is really good, but not good enough for me to argue with anybody that they aren't interested. And that's where I'm still at with this game. I think I if I gave it a number before, I don't know, but it's slowly settling in at a solid 7 out of 10 right now for me, which is still a fun experience, still a good game, a game that I'm enjoying playing, but it is not knocking it out of the park in the ways that some of the other Nintendo releases recently have been.
Yeah. Specifically some of the Nintendo RPG releases, right? Like we got the remake of Seven Stars a year ago, and then we got the remake. It's a remake of Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. So like I love that all three of these series got new or remade games in the past year. It's just, I mean, I found other people who agreed that like it stinks that Luigi is no longer mapped to be in battles. Like, that's not just a Devin Decker complaint. And that felt kind of nice.
Though.
It's
like
not.
That, and that is really disingenuous. He is hugely mapped to be in battles. It is just one moment of a button press that you're not used to that I completely forgot was your complaint again. As somebody that has played 7 hours of that game, forgot that it was an even issue that you had. He is still mapped to be in battles.
Yeah, but not the start of it. You have to hit A and then move over to B. It's a little weird. That's it. That's the only complaint I have about that part of the game. Otherwise, the battles were a lot of fun.
Challenging?
It's not a challenge. It's legitimately changing a mechanic that existed in 5 earlier games for the 6th game.
Again, yeah, and as somebody that also played those games, take it for me, didn't even notice it. So, like, yeah, I don't think it's as intricate to the experience as you make it out to sound.
2 steps forward, 2 steps back. We come together because our buzz is attracting, you know. All right. Anything else you want to make sure you shove into this 409th episode of the Say Report?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What do you want to talk about? You said, mm-hmm.
I said, mm-mm.
Oh, mm-mm. Sorry. Use your words. It's an audio form. No, I'm kidding. I feel like we've been doing so much recording, Sejohn. In fact, this is my 4th day of a recording streak and like creating things. Because I'm going to just finish up with this. On Friday, I was a special surprise guest on the Nostalgia Unboxed live stream as they opened it up to like viewers to join. So that was fun. So thank you to Nostalgia Unboxed for having me on Friday, talking about toys and turtles and turtle toys. And then we've done a bunch of stuff to make sure that the end of the year is easier for us. Basically what I'm saying, Sejohn, is thank you. Thank you for the Say Report. I think I've said that in one other episode that we recorded recently as well, but who knows when that will release.
We are entering the time of Thanksgiving, so
we're entering, the holidays, right? Like we got plans, and thank you. Thank you for Thanksgiving. I'm so happy. I'm in a good mood. I'm also like really jacked up. I drank both of those Mountain Dews. That might have been a mistake. You know when like Apu becomes a hummingbird because he worked for 36 hours straight at the Quickie Mart? I get it now. I understand. All right. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Say Report. If you want to join in on the conversation and keep it going, we have the Say Report Discord. Invitations are available wherever we're available on social media, which right now is Facebook or X, formerly Twitter. So go to us, find us on those platforms, and you can find an invitation to join the Discord. We'd love to have you. Additionally, if you don't go on social media, which we get, you can send an email to us. It's thesayreport@gmail.com, and we can facilitate you with an invitation that way. Or we can have a good old-fashioned correspondence via email, like it's 1998 or something. And just send us the emails. And if you want it to for me, Devin Decker, or for Sejohn, just make sure you put our name in the subject line. And Storm Shadow, he's our current intern because he's on the desk. He will make sure that it is only seen by the Say Reporter you want to see it. You know what? We'll also include Will, right? It'd be really fun to forward just like 70 emails to Will if in the subject line it just said Will. So, like, do that. Here's the thing. If you listen to this episode, you got this far, right? We're not going to be like YouTube. We're not going to please write, subscribe, and all that stuff. All you got to do if you listen to this whole episode of The Say Report, send an email to thesayreport@gmail.com. Will in the subject line. I'm not going to read it. Sejohn's not going to read it, but I'm going to forward it to Will, and we'll see what happens then. Should be a good time. Right, Sej? You think that could be a fun time?
I don't feel like I'm the one you need to clear this with at this point.
Nah, no, that's what you get for living in Australia. You get Devin Decker putting you on the spot. Love you, Will. I love you too, Sejohn. And I love all of you, the listeners. Thanks again for joining us on this journey. And now it's time for William to bring us home. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host, Devin Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.